the great halls of their house, there are assembled three who hope to one day be the world's greatest driving heroes. Created from the cosmic legends of the universe comes our team captain, the Vision Bill Fisher. Their soon-to-be Wonder Woman, Vicky Fisher. Our Captain Marvel and head flight trainee, Jennifer Skripchuk. And our Batman, master of tools, gadgets, and all things mechanical. Our mild-mannered soon-to-be billionaire, Alan Danvers. Their mission? To fight injustice, share what is right and wrong, to get you out of your house and come out racing with them, and serve all mankind. They are the Garage Heroes in Training Team.
Welcome to the Garage Heroes in Training Podcast. I'm one of the hosts for this episode, and my name is Bill. Who's hosting?
I'm Vicky.
Okay. And we've got guests again. Surprise, surprise. It's the off season. We don't have to talk about races anymore because it's cold and we don't do it anymore.
We really haven't spoken much about races anyway.
Yeah, we need this COVID thing to go away so we can have podcasts that we actually say we did something. Anyway, so we have two friends of ours, two friends from the Safety Third Motorsports. We have a returning guest. We have John Lavin and we have Dean Hesser. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
Yep.
Wow, I used the word gentleman loosely there. Anyway, so Dean, you're totally new to our audience, just in case they haven't met you before. Could you kind of give a brief introduction and we'll get into John?
Yeah, sure. I'm Dean Hesser. I'm part of Safety Third Motorsports. I live here close to you in Clark Summit, PA. Just give you a quick background. Married and two daughters at Lehigh right now that are home somewhere in the house here. And during the day, I sell cars. I own a Chevrolet, BMW, and a Nissan dealership. And that's pretty much what I do.
Awesome. John, just in case they missed your earlier episode, which was fantastic.
It was very good.
My name is John Lavin. By day, I am an attorney, so I terrorize people for a living. The rest of the team captain, I terrorize Dean Hesser.
Yes, you do.
It's a very important part of our team. And we run Safety Third Motorsports that predominantly focuses on endurance racing in Champ Car and now AER.
That's right. So, John, Dean, you missed it, but John, Vicky is effervescent and overflowing in the thank you-ness that she wishes to express to you about the skid pad event. Jennifer is so happy she didn't even come. And so I think
you're still motion sick from the
she might be.
Poor Jennifer.
Yeah,
right. Jennifer kind of ralphed when she was there. She had to, but you know what? She finished off strong. She wasn't. She went. Yes. She had to go do some business to throw up and then come back and
but
she got back in the car and went back in again.
But she was
how you finish.
So dignified that she actually went to the bathrooms as opposed to doing what the rest of my team would have done, which is throw up over the fence at Lime Rock onto the downhill, onto the uphill.
Yeah. She was a trooper.
If those people can't handle it on the track, they shouldn't have rented it.
Yeah.
So Dean, obviously you got your racing bug and it wasn't from hanging out with John. How did you get into this stuff?
Oh, I actually never really had much of a racing bug. You would think being in the car business pretty much all my life, my father was, and I'm just a little bit of, my experience. My first only experience before I met John was I did a demolition derby with my father and my uncle and two of my cousins. And part of that was you had to qualify to get into demolition derby. So you either did a 30 lap kind of little short race, sprint race, or that was an oval, or you elected to do the figure eight and hope you survived to make the demolition derby. And that was it. That was my only experience until John kind of convinced me or asked me while we were hanging out on the boat, hey, you want to do, at that time, we thought we were going to do a lemons race. And that's how I kind of got into it.
A lemons race?
Yeah, it was going to be a lemons race initially. And then I think I'm not sure if Jay's told the story or John's told the story before about how we found a car. Then we realized it was maybe too nice for lemons. And that's how we ended up going to Champ Car.
Well,
Oh.
Dean and I had a brilliant plan. It was a brilliant plan for Lemon.
Yeah.
Dean, in fact, went so far as to grow the mustache to play Burt Reynolds from Stroker Ace. And
Nice.
we
Wow.
were looking ever for one of the Thunderbirds, the Turbo Coupe Thunderbirds,
Mhm.
because we can't have an automatic car, so we absolutely had to have it, but we couldn't find one. So that's how we wound up finding a better car, and here we are.
Define better.
The
Too.
mustache and everything.
Well, I mean, finding a car that's too good for Lemon Series is not exactly a challenge. So, I mean, I understand. So, John, what's it like having a guy who wanted to go out and do demo derbies and figure eight racing on your race team?
Dean, actually, it's funny because now that I think about it, his experience and his entry into motorsport certainly matches his driving style. Dean is usually target acquired when he is racing, and he has tempered that tremendously over the years to now be incredibly effective. That if we give him a target, he usually goes and gets it, as opposed to missing the target and usually finding the grass or the gravel. But now he is absolutely positively on target. But it lines up. Frankly, it lines up.
That's a compliment, right?
Was that a compliment? It is a compliment. Dean is incredible. Dean is very, very. If you give him an objective, he gets it. Like, he will get it done. My favorite story about that, and it'll be the last one I give about him.
I doubt that.
We're in Watkins Glen, and Dean is putting in hero lap after hero lap, and we're like, "Where'd this guy come from?" Like, he went from running. I think he was running in our Supra, which was slow. I think he was probably like high 220s. All of a sudden, he's dipping down to like 221, which is like the fastest times that car was running at the Glen. And he's on the radio, and he's going, "I gotta get this car." And I see him go by, and I see it's a red Mustang notchback, and I look at the number, and like 2 more laps, and he is on the radio. "I gotta get this. Can you believe this guy? I'm on him. And he was closing the gap on him. And after like 6 or 7 laps, I finally said, "Listen, you're not even racing that guy. Not even the same class, not on the same lap.
Wow.
Behind you. Next time you think you're racing, call it in." So that's
but what he didn't finish though was, I blame it first on the team captain, because when you're because first racing, I just assume you race everybody,
Right.
not just a specific class. And what John isn't telling you is I eventually caught him down in the toe, and I thought I had him, and I spun.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Ran out of talent.
Yes. I was so pissed off, but it was fun.
So you got booted on the boot.
Definitely our attack dog, without question.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it sounds like somebody should start the race and just tell him which one's in first and just let him go chase him down.
Well, last time he started it, last time he started was after he found a dead guy at the gas station, right?
What?
Yeah, I did actually. That was
You found a dead guy at the gas.
Yeah, while we were leaving, we were what's it called? Out at Horseshoe, we were staying, so we had to drive out to the track, and typical routine, we had to get our Hungarian mechanic fed and filled with coffee. So we stopped at one of those whatever Flying J or whatever it's called up there, and there was a car. It was just, I look over when I came out, and it was running, and there was a guy passed out with like a
ukulele, didn't you?
Yeah, a little guitar or whatever. And I just thought he was passed out for the night before. So it was my daughter's graduation weekend, and I have a great wife that definitely encourages my hobbies. And she was like, you if you don't go to the race, you're gonna be miserable. I'll get we had a 200 person kind of graduation party. It was big up at my mother-in-law's, and she goes, "I'll get everything. I'll handle it. Just you be back by," I think it was 3:00. So it was the first actual race I was able to start because I had to start. So I'm sure Jay was sitting there just like, "Oh God, please bring the car back. Please bring the car back." I think he was definitely more nervous than I was, and so I did my part. It was a great race. We had a great weekend. Results were whatever. And so I had to take off. And I pull back into that same gas station, and I look over, and the car's still there. So I walk over, I kind of check the guy out. I go in, I get my Red Bull and what I need because I'm heading home. And I said to the cashier, I said, you may want to call 911. She's like, why? I said, you got a dead guy in your parking lot since 6 o'clock. So yeah, he definitely OD'd and he had a really good last night, but that was his last night. And it was kind of freaky. So
yeah, that kind of starts something off there.
Yes.
So what cars do you choose for the track and why?
Oh, Jay, you want to answer that or?
No, they got me on the last one. I you know me, I pushed the whole BMW thing. Even though you sell them, you can tell them you can give them your rundown and your reasons why.
Yeah, I mean, I can pretty much, when I started trying to figure out what I wanted to drive, other than we started with the wrong car. We just thought it was a fun car because of maybe some bad direction we were given by Champ Car, that not bring a BMW and try to do something different. But when I go and choose a car, even to drive, I mean, I always end up in a BMW, and there's reasons for it. I mean, I could have come to track with every Corvette, any kind of Camaro, GTRs, and I get a lot of great trades. And at the end of the day, it's really about balance and how the car feels. And I mean, a BMW is just a great all-around car. It does a lot well on the track, and as a driver trying to learn, it gives you the proper feedback that you need to improve. And it's just for me, I just enjoy being in a BMW, and not because I sell.
So do you guys find that the BMW is good to build from a base level to race all the way up to however you want it to be in strength and I guess techniques? Does that make sense? I know that you guys build cars.
Yeah.
But you find something in a BMW that makes it easy to build and build up into. Yeah,
especially for a club racer. And Dean, fill in, my gaps. But aside from a building standpoint, roll cages are, there's a million ways to build a roll cage, and there's a lot of right ways to do it.
Right.
So from a non-roll cage perspective, BMWs are incredibly popular to race, from professional level to club level to huge followings in Europe. So what's nice from a club racer's perspective is you don't need to reinvent the wheel every time. It's not a novel process. Parts are available, data is available, spring rates are available. You're not starting from zero every time you build a car.
Right.
In addition to that, the parts aren't crazy expensive either. I mean, if you take dollars for donuts, the same level of performance across the board, a BMW E46 M3 stacks up against pretty much anything else out there, and the cost of parts is not crazy. You take a Porsche, 991 or 992, any of those, and you start to try to put performance parts on the car, or even maybe babysit the car or maintain the car. The costs are crazy. So unless you have money to burn, which frankly, if you're in racing, you should.
Yes.
I thought that was a synonym.
Lots of it.
Lighting hundreds on fire and turning money into noise. I think BMW is a very, very easy car to build. And I'm not taking anything away from Miatas, because Miatas fall in that same category. Very cost effective, very, very, very popular race. So, Dean, you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that's spot on. I mean, the conversations that Jay and I have really now, as I think you guys are aware, we race an E36 in Champ Car. Jay's building his E46. I have an E46 myself as my kind of track day car, and eventually we'll probably endurance race that, or we'll figure out where we're going to slot it. It's the next move I think I struggle with BMW, because the cars have gotten very big, they've gotten heavier, they've gotten more complex, and what is the next real platform? Is it the 2 Series? Is it like Jay has a daily M4 driver that he loves? It's a great car. Where's the next move? And it's tough with the big switch in the industry to all crossovers and all this other nonsense, it's getting harder and harder to find a really good, solid coupe platform, especially in the BMW line. And so, I may have my E46 a lot longer than I planned on. So I don't know if
this podcast is over, we may have to talk about a Ginetta.
Ginetta.
Wow. So, I was just wondering, when you guys work on cars, what are you using that attracts deer to them immediately as soon as you take them away from the parking lot? I was just wondering if that was a whistle or paint that you guys are using, or
That was the molasses that I put all over the inside of your wheel wells.
oh, okay, all right. I was just wondering because it works really well. I mean, it avoids the brand new M4 and just goes, hunting for the E46. So yeah,
that was without question one of the darker moments I think that I have ever had after giving somebody a car that I had touched. So thank you for that. Thank you.
No worries. Far be it for me not to take a chance to take a shot. It's easy.
Don't worry, Bill. We can fix anything. That's the problem with me, because I always think that. I'm like, oh, don't worry. What, Bill? What? He hit a deer. Just bring it up to the body shop. I'll get him squared away.
Little PDR.
Yeah.
So, Dean, what is your position or area of responsibility? On any of the teams? Are you part of the
entertainment?
Team? Oh, yeah, entertainment.
No, listen. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I don't come with mechanical background at all. I mean, I've been around new cars pretty much all my life. So changing tires, learning to bleed brakes, do simple things. I owned no tools. I went from owning no tools to I'm not quite there yet, but so I think my role.
I feel you, Dean.
Yeah, and I think so. I always said I'm the Sherpa. I'm willing to, if I have to go back and I'll carry anything. I'm the smallest guy on the team, but if I have to unload tires, whatever I have to do, I like to work. I like to stay busy. I'm always, kind of disappointed that I can't do more. I try to absorb. I hang out with Jay. I mean, if you want to learn, you hang out with Jay, and you're gonna get better. And I'm almost embarrassed by sometimes my skill level there, but I try to make up for it in the sense that if we get to whatever you need, I'll do. I don't complain.
But you know what? Those people on the team are essential as much.
Yes. Yeah. But with that, I'll do simple things that you forget about. I mean, you need ice, you need coolers, you need food, you need the pit set up, you need things plugged.
You fill the holes.
And then I'm definitely the first to make sure that when we're able to have a drink, I have that planned. I know where we're going to go eat. If I need to do logistics, I need to rent garages, whatever my role needs to be, and then hopefully just be there to hand a wrench, and I hope I can figure out it's the right size and the things that they're asking for. That's it.
But how did you two meet? Since
Jay, you want to what? Jay, we have a mutual friend. He's going to interject. We have a mutual friend that was getting married. I did not know Jay. It's where Jay bought his boat. We both boat at a lake not far from here. Never ran into each other. We kind of you find out you know all the same people.
We don't understand how that was the case. Yeah.
So Mickey, we were invited to the wedding, and the guy's name is Roy, and he kind of indicated that Jay may be looking for an M4. So I'm like, and I said, could you kind of put us like in the same table? Could you put us in the same area? And I ended up showing up an hour early to the wedding, which is a true story. Pulled up, and the guy goes, "You can park right there." I'm like, "No, I don't want to park right there. I want to park right here because he's going to come up. He's going to have to drive past this M4. And I want a certain guy to see it." And so sure enough, it was the wrong color.
It reminds me of a guy on a first date.
or a car salesman. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Car salesman to me.
So basically, Mickey, Alicia and Jay ended up showing up, and I think we ended up meeting up at the bar. He came, he's like, "You must be Dean." And we ended up staying, what, Jay, about 2 hours maybe afterwards till they kicked us out. We found out we have just so much in common. He snowboards. I love to ski. We boat, and we just kind of had a bond.
Mm-hmm.
That was it.
Okay, so let's get this straight. You live near Scranton. You don't know a damn thing about cars. Why aren't you on our team?
Because you haven't asked me.
Oh.
Well, that's how it's going to be. I see how.
Welcome to the new Garage Heroes in Training.
Garage Heroes in Training now has a body shop. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
Well, the way we drive, we need that.
Yeah, we should have been called Hot Mess Racing, but I think the name was already taken.
Yeah, pretty much.
And by the way, Bill, I saw your last car, and I can't fix that.
No?
That would be a challenge.
Oh.
It's so close though. It's only bent in 3
Is that
dimensions.
the silver?
No, the black one.
Oh,
The black one.
Deadpool.
the dead. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh well. So, guys, we come to that part of the year where we start planning our next season. You guys got a schedule yet? Because I can't get Jennifer and Vicky in the same room at the same time to get our schedule ironed out. So
We do. We committed to our schedule. I think Dean already started with booking garages and hotels and figuring out some logistics. I think a couple of the races are questioning going to be how many cars are we bringing.
oh nice.
I think, and don't hold me to dates because I remember venues, not dates as well. But I think we're going to start the season at Pit Race with AER in I think April, and then we do Watkins Glen, and then we do Summit, Maine, and then I think we go to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, better known as Mosport, with Champ Car, and then I think we go.
Are you going to Pit Race for Champ too?
I think we're doing Pit with you.
Yep.
Right, and then we're going Canadian Tire Motorsports Park the next weekend.
We have a VIR in there.
Oh yeah, we have VIR full course with AER in July.
Right.
And then we're doing the VIR North, which we love closing the season. We're heartbroken this past weekend. We were supposed to be down there.
Right.
We have won that race 3 years in a row, both days. Yeah. And that is such a fun race. So we're genuinely heartbreaking. So we will probably, no matter what series we ultimately always run for real in, we will probably always run that race with Champ Car. It is such a fun event because everybody knows the year's over.
Yeah.
And it's super, super fun event. So yeah, we're definitely doing 6. I may try to convince the guys to do a Mosport again with Lucky Dog Canada.
Oh, that would be fun.
Lucky
we struggle, Bill. We struggle with should we stay loyal to a series and try to do very well in the sense of points and championship, or should we just go to great tracks that we want to experience? And it's kind of hard to get that balance, and that's what Jay and I talk a lot about, and I'm not sure really what the right answer is. And because in a lot of tracks would be new to us, and it's not like I've been to Road Atlanta 10 times and it's just Road Atlanta anymore. So we're still, I know it's like you guys try to go to a lot of track days and experience different tracks and different places, and we kind of fall into that a little bit too.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say that we so much do that as we kind of stay in our circuit, but we have like 1 or 2 away races. That way, because sometimes when you just move around and hop on a new track constantly, it's mentally challenging, to get your first segment of the day, just trying to get familiar and trying to get your car to perform on a track that you're unfamiliar with, or even try to remember where the turn is, where you need to be, or where are you on that perspective of the track. That was always difficult for me in the very, very beginning. But no, I think that, away races are great. It's just like a field
Keeps
trip.
it fresh.
Well, away races, they expose, they amplify every weakness that you have as a team, or they amplify every personality of a team, right? So Like we go to Watkins Glen, it's like old hat. Like we know where to go, what bathroom to be closest to, where to put your car, everything. You
It's
can
like
drive
a home track.
Right. Same thing with Lime Rock. Those places are like old hat. It's not stressful. You VIR at this point, other than the drive down, it's not stressful. You go to another track, now you have to play into, okay, which one of my drivers adapts fastest? Which one of my drivers needs that moment in the morning?
Right.
Which one of my drivers need to study the track. Which one of my drivers do we need to get there in advance so they're really comfortable in the car? But that being said, you want to race, man. You got to go where the race is.
I know.
Did you just describe all of the above for me, Jay?
No. Very easy. We need to know where the closest bathroom is, and we need to cater around that moment.
Right.
And we need to figure out how far from the trailer to the pit, because as you said, you're the Sherpa and you're in charge of the pit. So we try to make it easy for you by not making you walk up and down 700 times.
Bill's our Sherpa.
Wow. About time. I have a role. So, guys, you guys have been doing this a bit longer than we have, and you've actually been successful at doing this. And, has your racing philosophy changed over time, or did you kind of come in and say, these are our goals and we're doing this, or?
This is me.
Oh, boy. Well, I would listen. Jay is definitely goal oriented, and I think
I've never noticed.
Yeah, you didn't notice that, and
maybe once.
And I do. I do think you need someone to set a level of expectation, and you have to determine, what if are you just going for fun or you're going for results, and hopefully results and fun are kind of come together. And I think, there was a point where I think, as much as we had good intentions, we just, we were kind of falling all over each other, and they were adding a lot of stress. So I do think once we got to the point of certain people on the team had your roles and what you needed to own from the time you led up to the race to the time we get back home from the race and all the prep for the next place, you have to kind of, and I know Jay hates when I say treat it like a business, but you just definitely have to be organized and task driven. And, it's not a track day. You're not going just to pound laps. You're going there to race. And once we all got on board with that, we started having more success.
Yeah, I would say, to Dean's credit, two things that I saw change in Dean's philosophy. And it happened with ours. We went from being a team that wanted to show up, and we wanted to be a team that wanted to finish. And then you become a team that wanted to race. And Dean is as competitive as I am, if not more so, frankly. But you take Dean. What Dean has done is I think the next step of what all teams need to do is you start to suss out who on your team wants to win, and you start to suss out on your team who wants to be successful, as opposed to just showing up and having a great time and finishing a race. And Dean's a perfect example of that. Dean pounded more laps this year and last year than any of them. His car, he showed up at every event and just pounded laps because he wanted to get better. I wish I could say the same thing about the rest of the team, but that's the problem with endurance racing. Unless you're flying in a bunch of pro drivers, you're driving with your friends, and some of your friends are more serious than others.
Yeah, I want to interject on that if I can. I mean, when he says pound laps, I think early on that's what I did do. I would go up to the Glen and do NASA, HOD, and it was great. It was fun. It was social. And then I realized I need to do more than just loop around this track. I need to set objectives. Work on some weaknesses, learn a little bit about data, but as Jay says, don't get lost in the data. Pay, it's costly. I had to get some coaching, and then I learned a little different. I like to take a little bit of information, and I don't want anyone to bother me. I need to process it in my own way. And I always go to a track day. I love the social aspect of it. I'm definitely a social guy, and I have a lot of fun. But if I have 4 or 5 sessions, I definitely have a game plan, and I'm there to work and to improve, because Jay knows, I always say I don't want to be that guy. I want to be able to get in any car, and if the lap time in that car is the best time's 2:06, it's not acceptable for me to be 2:10. I need to be 2:07 or 2:08 right there, and I need to know how to drive in the rain. I was down in Jersey, and HOD, he ended up closing I was the only guy out there with Laszlo driving around Lightning. over and over and over and over for hours in a downpour because I never drove in the rain and I knew it was going to happen. We ran into that at pit. We ran into it VIR and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter anymore where I get put out. I don't worry about it. And I think that's something that each individual team member has to make a decision. And if they don't want to make that commitment, that's fine. Then you just got to make sure that you're happy and content with that as a team, that, someone may not put that effort in and that's fine. But for me, I am competitive and I definitely want to improve and I want to race in, different series. And that's the commitment I've made the last couple of years. And I appreciate, Jay, that you recognize that. So.
Sounds like Dean and I need to go to a HPDE together because we do the same thing. So since we started hanging out after John came on and we talked a little bit before and that, so do you guys feel better about your team after seeing what a show we are?
We try so hard.
That's harsh, Bill.
Oh, okay, I was just checking. All right.
Well, I think playing off of what Hesser said, Hesser never wanted to be that guy, but it took him 2 seasons to realize who that guy was, right? So, name for anything that's getting into this, it is you don't realize the stresses and the things you need to do at all until you are deep into it, and there is no replacement for showing up at a race
and prep.
Right.
There is no replacement. You can't explain it to somebody. You could bring them along, but until it's like your turn to get in the car. It's until that moment's there.
Well, we showed up our first race, which was I'm not sure if you guys covered that before, but it was our first race that this is team captain thought was a great idea. We're going to drag 4 other people that have never been on a racetrack, basically, are kind of on a racetrack to go do a 24-hour champ car race down in at VIR when it's 110 degrees in the middle of the summer. And we were working, not we, but Jay and Laszlo were working in the car in Jay's garage at home in Jersey, the night before to 2 in the morning. And then we loaded up and drove and we finished the car. Basically, I think we paid someone to help put in an alternator or whatever we had to do, or fuel a fuel pump. I forget because we were so tired.
The guy was sleeping in the front of the truck at the time.
Yeah. And just to go out racing, and I kind of look back at those times. That day when we show up a lot of racing, the guys are still working on their car, and you're like, how did you? What are you expecting to get out of this weekend? And it's really because it's not inexpensive. You're taking time and effort, and to come in there, you really have to be able to go with the flow and not care. But I didn't want to repeat that 24-hour experience again. I mean, we had a lot of fun and we had a lot of laughs, but we expected to get a lot more out of that weekend. And I think, Jay and I had a lot of time to reflect in the truck coming back. And I ended up, putting the car, cause the car died on me and it was, I was sitting in the grass and the thing was starting to smoke. It was starting to catch the grass on fire. And I'm like, oh God, what am I going to do? I'm not allowed to touch the fire button. I've been told I cannot touch the fire button and the car's going to be on fire. And I'm like, why am I sitting here? And this isn't fun. And we kind of, I think we've grown a lot from that first experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Better, or you just do the same thing.
Yeah.
So this is a good one. Your thoughts on your team have done so far. You're good, you're bad, and you're ugly. And uglies are usually really good. Could be your best funny.
Uglies are only good after they're done.
I did the good, the bad, and the ugly last time when you were not present, Dean. So you can take.
Well, what I'm sorry, but what the question is on the team are good or bad or ugly as a team or individual?
However you want to interpret that.
How you and your team have done up until this point. You've done some things well that you'd say to some other team, hey, you should do this. You've done some things poorly. You tell somebody else, hey, you definitely shouldn't do this. And then the ugly is,
you just completely went off the rails.
Well, I mean, listen, we've had some, I mean, good. We've had some success. I mean, as a team, I think we figured out how to not finish races. We've figured out how to compete. I think we've figured out between races, or definitely races or even seasons, how to advance our car, how to advance our team, which I think is important. So I think that would be the good. Oh boy, the bad would be some of the would be
Did you have an event?
VIR 20. Yeah, VIR 24. I mean, that was a bad. I mean, we showed up and we had one of our guys. The reason I ran out, I was sitting in the grass, was because I ran out of gas because the next guy, and I kept saying, I got to come in, and Jay's like, you got to stay out. And I'm like, I can't stay out. That light thing is on. Over there, and I think that thing is gas. And they're like, oh, we got to get 2 more laps out of you, 3 more laps. And it was because one of the guys didn't even. Now he went and had his gear checked, but he didn't have the plastic off his shield. He still had his price tags on stuff, and his laces and his shoes had to be put in, and we couldn't get him in the car. And it was a lot of bad, but you need bad in order to learn. So it was fine. Ugly's been some of the things, because Jay and I think we wanted success for our team. Maybe our team, some of them didn't want as much, and some of our we've had some screaming matches, Jay and I, at the track, and we were both embarrassed by. I mean, it was just passion. We just wanted to do well, and I'm stubborn. I'll admit.
More German.
And I'm not going to back down, and I'm there, and for whatever reason, we had some of those moments, and that part was the ugly part. And me personally was, I won practice in Thompson. I put a car in a wall, and that is ugly. And that's after paying for a car, and you got to, I understood people took time off, and you got to make people whole, and I think I did my part. I handled it right, but I think I needed that in order to realize that, hey, this is, there's consequences for just coming out here and not putting in the time, not learning, and it has an impact on everyone else that's trying to come out for the weekend. And I actually needed the crash in order to get it. And but that was my big ugly. I don't know if you agree with that. Did I miss an uglier one?
No, I think there's but I do think that the good that came from that, not to continue this hug fest too much, because listen, I don't want you to come up with the opinion that Dean and I are like nice to each other. But what really came from that is, if you look at what transpired at Thompson, which I think I described as our ugly too, we went and won 7 of the next 8 races because, that righted the ship. That moment righted the ship, not just for Dean, it righted the ship for all of us. Because I think it was at that moment where we recognized that we showed up for real. At least we thought we did. We showed up with the car. We showed up here. We showed up with the drivers. We showed up. And we were going to make a point that day because someone told us that our car was not competitive. And we showed up. And then, things went off the rails. But then after that, we proved that our car was not just competitive. It was the car to catch for the next 8 events. And that's the good that came from that. So I give thanks for wrecking the car, Dean, I guess. I mean,
no problem. I can tell you practice is a lot different.
Yeah.
And they're like, you got to go out and scrub tires. I'm like, I'm good. I'm really good.
That's awesome.
Oh, geez. No, I think Jennifer, when she actually got into a accident with one of our cars early on, and then she ended up driving in fear, a little bit of an underlying fear ever since then. And it wasn't until she crashed with a BMW that she's just like, I think I'm good. And in a weird way, it's almost like kind of facing your fear for a second time. I know it kind of sounds weird, but I think after that, she's like, I don't think I'm going to end up doing that again, because she was always worried about crashing constantly. And then when she ended up doing it again, she's like, okay, I think I'm good. Which is
Let me ask you a question, Vicky.
Way of doing it.
Hey, can I ask you a question? Did she, like, when I crashed, I knew what I did.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the same mistake I kept making over and over and over, and I just didn't do anything to improve. Did she know why she crashed?
Initially, she did not.
Okay.
And we had to keep going over the tape. And honestly, the first time wasn't her fault. The first time she got pinched between two cars. And, you know, because they were trying to go 3 wide, and one pushed her into another car, and she just happened to be the middle guy.
It came across the front and clipped the front quarter.
Right.
And then 3 cars wide, it just became a ping pong ball. Ding, 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 ding.
Right. So and then, but the second time that she crashed, it was her fault. But
maybe
she technically did not have enough knowledge in racing to realize what she had done, especially in a car that was probably a little bit above her skill level, you know, on a track, which was Charlotte, which is unforgiving. You know, if you mess up on Charlotte, you are going to hit a wall. There's just no, right. I think that if she had made that simple mistake and it was any other track, I think that she would have been fine. But
I think the best learning track is High Plains Raceway, because you could go off in Colorado, end up in Kansas before you hit anything.
Right, exactly.
Gingerman's almost the same way too. There's one wall, and you got to go find it. Okay.
Yeah.
So we started this podcast when friends of ours have another podcast, Everyone Racers podcast, and it seemed like not only did they know what they were doing, because they'd been doing it for over a decade, but it's kind of like you don't realize what you have intuitively an understanding of that somebody coming in doesn't understand. So sometimes they would talk about stuff like, oh, this is just a simple little blah, blah, blah. And we're sitting there going, we don't know what that is. So this episode is going to go into a little bit of how do you prep a car? Because people say prep the car, bring the car, make sure you do this process and this process, and then you just do that. And sometimes it takes actually describing what it is, because I know that we prep our car, but I don't know that we prep a car properly. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody who listens learns a little bit. And since you guys have this down, and I believe you even have checklists for this, we thought it was a great thing. And so we were going to start with, if we're going to go to a race or a track day, what do you guys think is the proper way to prep a car to go to a track before you get to the track?
Hey, Jay.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? Do you could you just throw this out? I mean, I other than just doing a checklist, don't you think when we've done a lot whenever we make a change to a car, that before we get to a race, that we get that car on and go on track, and we, a race isn't a place to make your adjustments.
A race isn't a test day, correct?
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe, I don't know if that's really where it starts, then it leads to your, getting ready for a race, but I'll let you handle it.
Yeah, I think, my mindset is you have to know what it is you're bringing. And I don't mean that literally as to like, I'm bringing a 1993, mostly BMW 325-ish to the track. It's you need to know the age of the parts that are in the car. You need to know the last time you checked over certain things. You need to have a full idea of what that car is. So how old are the brakes? How many miles are on the brakes? When were the bearings changed in the wheel? Wheel bearings changed. When was, if you have a BMW or a modern car, that the Guibo, which is mispronounced, is actually Jubo, but those things, how old are they? When have they been in the car? So every time that the car comes off track for me and goes in the trailer and comes back to the shop, between that moment and the next track, I assume everything in the car is broken. Literally. Now, mind you, I may take mental notes of what the car felt like when I was in it last. I may ask the team what it felt like last. or what did you notice? And we constantly talk over the radio. So there's a checklist, there's a list of things that are going to get our attention anyway. But I always assume everything is broken between races because it may be. And the thing that's different about a race car and a street car is, if as you get better as a driver, the car is at 80 to 90 to 100% of its capacity all the time on parts that are never meant to see that duty cycle, right? So we kind of have an idea of timing. So even though a part's not bad, we change it because it's going to go bad. We have a pretty standardized list of what we physically touch and look at as far as to check. And that's where the nutting and bolting thing comes from, which I know we're going to get into. But generally speaking, we assume the car's broken.
So does that mean you take the car apart?
No,
parts of it, sure.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, parts of it, but not all of it.
Parts of it, yeah.
Yeah. So, we don't take the engine apart every time. We don't take manifolds off the car every time. We don't do things like that. But we do assume that, for example, fuel injectors need to be checked. We do assume that the brakes need to be a complete overhaul. We do assume that the drive shaft probably needs U-joints, even though it doesn't. We do assume that every bolt underneath the car that holds anything that vibrates or shakes is loose. And that's kind of how we approach it. We look at every single, every soft part. So brake lines, fuel lines, we look at them like we have no idea how long the car has been on the road and sold.
And Bill, one of the things too, I mean, we agreed as a team for budget wise that, yes, you're going to spend a little bit more, maybe whatever that is. And we're going to quantify it as we go further along and we continue to get more race days and we see how long components last and kind of, what it costs to replace them, that it's probably a lot easier to replace 20, maybe spend 20% more, in your maintenance budget and to make sure that when you go to a track, you're going to have a good weekend. I mean, things can happen, but yeah. And one of the things that I have a bunch of retail shops and they mean well, but they fail miserably, right, Jay, on sometimes maintaining my car, which I have, I have an E46 M3 fully caged. It's a race car that I take to the track and
beautiful car, man.
And what's that?
It's a beautiful car.
Yeah, it'd be a GT, 3 or 4 car, basically 4 or whatever. And I fight them all the time that, I'm like, when I come in, I'm like, replace the, certain things. And they're like, well, because we're from an industry where people come in and you're trying to save them money and they're waiting for things to either break or totally wear out. But that's a lot different than when you have 20% brake wear. Yeah, maybe you get a month out of those. When you can't go to the track with 20% brake wear, and so it's really hard to change that mentality from a way you are with your normal street car to the way you are with a track car, because it has a race car. It has to change. And one of the things that I don't know if it was Jay's idea or whatever, even in my car, because I don't have you don't have an odometer anymore. I put a cheap boat hour gauge and it's in the back. Yeah. And so you buy it from West Marine for about $40. And I started logging, when we replace things and put things in, and then when they wear out or when we pull them out. So then I get an idea that, hey, that's going to last for 10 hours. And when I hit that 10-hour mark, it's automatically getting replaced, regardless of what it looks like. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. I mean, you take, for example, you take steering gear, right? You take tie rod ends. In your car, you may wait to go over that expansion joint in a bridge and feel that clunk and go, oh, something's wrong. But in a race car, that's not the way that goes. That goes from being, turn 1 at Watkins Glen, turning in, hanging on for dear life, tracking out into the paint, losing a tie rod and finding the arm cup. Those are the things that you kind of have to change your mindset for racing. It's a real deal. And the funny thing is, the English have the penny wise, pound foolish statement, right? Racers, especially club racers, make that mistake. It's like, okay, wait a minute. You put your car into a $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 trailer. You pulled it up here with a $75,000 or $85,000 pickup, or even a $20,000 pickup, or even a $10,000 pickup. You put $1,000 of tires on it. You went and bought race pads for it, and you have fancy pants race brake fluid in it. But God forbid, you put a $40 tie rod end on, and that's kind of the mindset that you need to change the way when you show up at a race, or you're going to start racing your car.
So are you saying that pretty much like how often did you say you have to change certain parts? What is the rotation of time?
It depends.
Yeah, so it depends on the parts. Like we will do for our E36, for those BMW folks, our E36 race car, we will do probably about 40 hours of race time on wheel bearings. They may go 80, they may go 120, they may go forever. We don't know. We change them effectively once a season.
Now, are these pretty much, just in general, are these pretty much your own mindset of parts, or is this kind of like, is this documented somewhere on the internet?
No.
People might have something.
The internet information, we follow our Safety Third Motorsports' mantra is anything that's on the internet is true. So we definitely follow that.
No. Well, I just thought there might be some, maybe Safety Third might have some information on that.
No,
I
don't, or we don't, but
it's a rule of thumb thing.
Yeah.
It's a
the rule of thumb doesn't apply to people who don't know. It's
a composite of our own experiences and the experiences we gleaned from talking to others who do know. And like I said, I think when I was on the first time, if you
basically saying, Billy, you have to be in the know to know.
No,
he's not.
You have to have the courage to ask.
You're taking us wrong.
Yeah, I think you have to ask because racers may not tell you how to find that last, half a second, but generally speaking, racers are pretty supportive. So if you find someone who's running the same car you have for 2 or 3 seasons, they're going to let you know what the problems with the car are, or what they've experienced with the car. Like I said, they may not tell you the fine details of setup or any of those things, but they're going to give you the broad point. So like for us, we had some advantages. Laszlo, our Hungarian mechanic, is a pit crew member for automatic racing. And automatic racing has a tremendous history of BMW before they switched to Aston Martin. So, we looked at some of their program. Some of their stuff is crazy, like when they would change harmonic balancers on an S54 for every race, which is, an $800 part every race. That's a hard no for most club racers. But other things like wheel bearings and studs and stuff like that, we kind of, played along and listened.
I think Vicky's not happy with you. Because she remembers last year's battle of the wheel bearing on the rear.
I've never seen that. I saw that wheel bearing in person. I saw that control arm in person, and I have never, all of the BMWs I have worked on, that was an utter first for me. I mean, what
was the issue?
If it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing, Bill.
So we decided we were going to change our wheel bearings on all 4 tires because we didn't really know how long they'd been on there because we bought the car and we raced it. I think it was 2 races, maybe 3.
Yeah.
And we said, okay, let's just reset the odometer.
No, right. No, but what happened is that we had the bad, remember Alan drove the first tire into a clover leaf.
So we had one broken. So we were going to just reset the whole car. So I go do the front 2 wheel bearings. They come off, no problem. Piece of cake. Then we start doing the back wheel bearing, and it's different. And we had to get this thing called a slide hammer. So we go get the slide hammer. We go to the passenger's one. I go 1, 2, 3, 4. Boom, it's off. No problem. I let Vicky do the other one, and then 16 hours later, not.
No, you guys started it. You're like, will you please come over and help me,
I'm just
please?
Kidding. So 16 hours, not start to stop. 16,
Bill was not going to give up on this.
16 hours continuous time over 4, 5, 6 days. I don't remember how long it was. That wheel bearing was not coming off. We started the slide hammer. Then I started adding weight to the slide hammer. Then I had like 20 pounds of weight on the slide hammer. And
we started going in there saying there's got to be a different way. Started going on the internet, figuring out maybe.
It just wasn't letting go. It was very happy where it was.
And, listen, all I can say, Bill, is there is a junkyard right down the street from your house.
Yes, I'm aware.
Highway, I think it's Morgan Highway something, Hesser, right?
Yep.
Yes, I pass it every day.
36 parts. And at that point in time, knowing that you're a doctor,
yeah.
Okay, he's book smart. Okay,
wow.
He's book smart.
Wow. This is that penny wise, pound foolish thing I was talking about, right? It's like I will spend 16 hours taking out a $40 wheel bearing as a $12 junkyard part, as opposed.
It became personal. I think he actually named it at one point. Was cussing at
Oh,
it.
I was naming it. It wasn't
Sure.
anything we're saying on this podcast.
He's like, this can't be that difficult. It shouldn't be this tough.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was terrible.
So yeah, so car prep is frankly critical. I mean, you know, the old adage of you got to finish the race to win the race, right? So you have to have that mentality when you go into it.
Oh,
So looking
there's
at
more we have to learn.
So looking at it from I would tend to work in manufacturing environments. So looking at it from a manufacturing environment, what we tended to do was, as you work with a machine, or you work with an engine, or you work with whatever it is, if the part breaks at 100 hours or 100 days or whatever, it doesn't matter, then you put a preventive maintenance plan together so that you replace that part at 80%
Correct.
of whatever it is.
Same.
And a similar philosophy here. And as you get to be more familiar with your car and you get to know your car better, you do the same thing here. Is that what we're basically saying?
Absolutely, because if the production line, as you know, if the production line shuts down for 4 hours when it's supposed to be running, is a hell of a lot more expensive than scheduling someone to come in when the production line is down to change whatever you need to change on the piece of tooling you're working on, period, right? So it's the same for race cars. Nothing worse than going to the track, especially wheel bearings. I'm sorry, and wheel bearings are biggie. Nothing worse than going to the track for a race and having a wheel bearing go bad or your wheel fall off and drive down, you know, past you going into turn whatever on whatever racetrack you're on, because you didn't want to spend $40 an hour changing it at home. So you time those things out, right? You know, your car is a vibrating hot mess. You know, the more things you
Sounds
make,
like our team.
but the more and I say this all the time, the things that make race cars great make street cars terrible, right? So your car, odds are, was meant to be a street car. It was never meant to do the things you're doing to it. So when you switch from nice soft rubber bushings to urethane or full race bushings that are sphericals or solids on motor mounts and trans mounts, well, guess what? That bolt, you probably don't want to just make sure it's tight after a season. You want to probably make sure it's changed after a season because it has fatigued, it has gotten hot, it has stretched, it has shrunk, all those things. And funny thing is, most of that stuff's reasonably cheap. Look, brake rotors are a different discussion. When you start getting into real race parts and you start talking about $300, you know, per outer on a front rotor on a race car, it's a different discussion. But again, you don't show up at a race with a rotor of unknown origin, or you've gone 3 races and said, oh, I made it this far, because when they come apart, it's usually pretty catastrophic. And it's going to cost you a lot more money, you know?
Sure. Okay, so you develop this.
Okay,
Go ahead.
I got one more question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or just one
If
more
only
statement.
we were on a podcast where we ask questions.
Yeah. Well, it's fine. It is an overwhelming concept for a person like me, because I'm not obviously up to the level of maintenance that you guys are at, to understand what those rotations are.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing that they have to get done, which is probably winter prep season, especially, is you know, now I need to find a starting place and need to find a time frame for all this.
So I'm gonna let's do this then. I'll give you a rundown. So my suggestion, aside from checking these things along the way, is that you change all of the parts that go whir, right? So bearings.
That go whir.
So bearings, not the parts that go vroom, but the parts that go whir. You change those parts once per season, assuming you're doing between 4 and 6 races, right? So assume, 35, 45 hours of race time, real practice time, not just messing around on track day, real practice time for those parts on at least the cars that we work on. So BMWs, bearings are once a season. That doesn't mean we don't bring spares.
Okay.
Doesn't mean something can't go crazy, but without question, no matter how perfect they are, they get changed.
I have spares if you need some. Let me know.
I have seen your spares, and you can build at least 2 cars from the spares you have if you only had the chassis to go with them.
And skill.
Yeah, well, that's sunset. But you look at like wheel studs, right? So wheel studs, we run a particular brand that we are very comfortable with. I've never really seen one break, except Dean broke 2. But I think I have a theory behind that. So we'll go approximately 2 races before we swap them.
Really?
Yeah, we'll do about 2 races before we swap them. We'll keep 1 or 2 spares, and frankly, they're probably fine. But again, it's like, okay, $20 a corner, $40 $100, $200 for the whole car for a $1,600 or $1,800 race weekend plus fuel plus. I mean, a race weekend costs us $6,000 easy. So I'm not going to fight over $200 in wheel studs. So we'll do those. If it's a BMW or a car that has a McPherson strut front end, you check your spherical bearings or whatever you have in the top of your struts. You look around the car for those items, the soft rubber bits like the guibo on the drive shaft, the carrier bearing on the drive shaft if you're still running a two-piece. That's once a season without question as far as I'm concerned. Axles, you take them out of the car, you make sure there's no play in the CVs, you put them back in, keep a spare set. But things that are very difficult to change at the track on the cars we run, rear wheel bearings, as Bill has attested to, guaranteed once a season. Fronts, we could do in a few minutes. But then again, remember, a few minutes in a race is you lost the race. You could be in whatever position you want.
Right.
Change your wheel bearing, it's over. There's no more race.
Well, and the reason why I'm saying this is not only because of our HPDE, well, not HPD cars, but not only because of our own race cars, but, I am especially in love with my little Miata.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm realizing that I've been putting some hard race laps on that. And now I'm realizing that if I really want to save this car and make it last more, that these things need to take place.
Absolutely.
So I do know that we're going to be getting a lift in soon, which is going to be making it so much easier.
Oh, you'll never go back. Once you have a lift,
well, that's
never go back.
We have,
that I'm realizing now that I'll be taking my car apart.
we have all the parts you need.
You take that car, for example, right? So now the questions with these cars, these cars are 20 years old, 25 years old, 30 years old. Again, they're not meant to do what we're doing with them for season after season. So you take that track car outdoors, you add a stickier tire, a stiffer spring, a stiffer, a more compression shock, etc.
Wider tire.
Now you start talking about the fact that the car has stress cracks. So you're going to start looking in places where suspension mounts are, and you're going to start looking for cracks. You're going to have to clean all that grime and junk out of the car. I mean, candidly, look, one of the best things you could do as a racer, as a club racer, as a DE person is keep your car really clean. Like, I'm not saying it needs to be debt free.
How?
Keep it clean, right?
How?
Wash it.
Pressure wash it or hand wash?
You can. I mean, there's not. We're not adverse to the pressure washer by any means, but
I hand wash mine every time.
Yeah, brake clean and do a good old fashioned, pick a regular interval where you're doing a good old fashioned sponge bath of the car. And I'm being funny, but get that rag out, climb in there, climb in the footwells, climb every place, and look and see if cracks, look and see if spot welds are starting to pop, because they will. Cars that are properly caged will last far longer than cars that are not.
Right.
But even then, you now need to look at the cage and look at every single place there's a weld. Like you take my E46 M3, for example, it's painted a beautiful color. The cage is painted a beautiful color. That makes it 10 times harder for me to look through the car and see if there's cracks. The reason why a lot of race cars are painted white or light gray on the inside, because it's easier to see the cracks that form, because they do, and they will. So these are things you need to look at all the time. You need to always assume your car is broken or on the verge of breaking every time you look at it. You can't just stand back and say, look at this beautiful race car I have, and it very well may be. But you have to assume it's broken. I don't know what else to say. Assume it's broken.
I'm assuming that now my Miata is broken.
Well, your Miata is broken. There's no assumption.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so we've prepped the car. Let's assume we the first rule of Garage Heroes in training is bring a car to the track that's working. Mm-hmm. So assume that we did that, which would be relatively new for us, but we're trying. When we get to the track, you take the car off the trailer. It could be an open trailer, it could be a closed trailer, the night before you race, or you go to a track day. Do you do anything there? We
do. Yeah, we double check. We check fluids because, oftentimes you're hustling to get the car ready to go on the trailer, even though you have months in advance to prepare. We'll check all the fluids. We'll check, we'll make sure that seat bolts and stuff are correct, and we'll double check and make sure that the timing on the fire system is still within spec, all the stuff that you oftentimes forget to do. And we will actually look at, and this is part of the prep, when we nut and bolt a car, and nutting and bolting is not unique to our form of motorsport. It's every form of motorsport. Desert racers nut and bolt cars. they sometimes go so far as to safety wire every single bolt on a car, right? Because those cars get pounded. I mean, if you think our race cars get beat up, but what we'll do is we'll do a paint mark, not just to remind us that we touched that bolt, but that paint mark will extend onto a surface so you can visually look and see if the bolt clocked, if the bolt loosened.
Moved, yeah.
Right. So you can do a quick once over. So we will do that. We will go through the car and make sure that there's not crap laying on the floor, that we didn't leave a wrench, leave a screwdriver, any of that stuff under the car. And then we usually put it on the lift and take the wheels off.
We take the wheels off. I was going to say that, and because we a lot of times we pack stuff in the car, we check comms, and then we take the wheels off as our final thing.
Why?
Barbasol can.
Yeah, because we don't know what the weather's going to be in the morning. So we have two different tire setups. So we hopefully in the morning it's just making suspension adjustments based off of what tire and the weather that we're going to hopefully experience that day.
Okay,
right.
So
for an endurance race, what we'll do too is we will take the car out of the garage after we decide what our setup for that day is. We will warm the car up fully. We will shut the car off and we will fill it. Again, we will refill the car to the absolute tippy top after the car is warmed up. So that is kind of our pre-race setup. So night before into the minute.
So do you nut and bolt the car before you leave and at the track, or just at the track, or just before you leave? Or?
No, before we leave. I mean, if we obviously if we didn't have time and couldn't do it, we would do it at the track the night before. But usually we will nut and bolt the car front to back. And remember, nutting and bolting is literally checking every single available nut that's on the car. The 3 bolts on your suspension on your strut hats in a BMW are consistently loosened. Those you check all of the items underneath the car. You check the stop nuts on your tie rods. All those things get checked and painted and cleaned and et cetera. And this way you have confidence in the car when you get it in, you go. And that gets done before the race, hopefully well in advance. The last little once over is because, stuff falls out of your pockets, you're tired, you forget. And right. No one wants the Barbasol can rolling around and under the brake pedal when you're going to turn 1 at VIR.
Or turn 10 at Road Atlanta. Vicky said she'd stay out. She's fine. Anyway, moving on. All right, so let's pretend that it's a semi-normal race weekend. Friday, we arrive at the track. We race all day Saturday. Finish up. Some races you're done with the first race, and the second race is the next day. Some races it's continuous. Some races, whatever. Assuming that you can touch your car. Yep. Certain races where you can't.
Yep.
What would it
race as opposed to a park for May continuous? Yeah.
Right. What would you do on a Saturday night to make sure your car is good to go for Sunday?
We do a full nut and bolt front to back. So same as we would in the shop. We'll check wheel bearings before we take tires off. We will like when we take tires off, for example, we'll take a wrench and we'll ring every single stud. And if the stud sounds weird, if it doesn't ring, you can meet the broken stud. So we'll do all those for all 20. We'll go back under the car. The bigger items like subframe parts and stuff like that, we'll just do a visual. So we'll look and see if the paint line's moved or if there's cracks or anything like that. And we'll look at anything that popped up during the day. If Dean's driving the car and says, hey, I hear a shimmy out of the right rear, we'll check that. And then again, we leave the tires off the car.
And we bleed the brakes.
Bleed the brakes. We bleed the clutch.
Clean the car.
Yep.
Clean the car. All windows outside. We clean it. We clean the car.
So I have a suspicion, because John is very similar to me in that you not only do this, but you have a checklist to do this.
We do.
I would think. Okay. So you're not just overlooking things randomly. You actually have a what's called a system, and you make sure that's all done.
We do. And I mean, look, I have no problem sharing the generals, but the problem with nutting and bolting a car is it is incredibly car specific, right? So,
sure.
The things that are going to vibrate loose on the car don't always make sense. I've been in race cars where the driver's seat mounts vibrate, but not a single piece in the drivetrain does, and it just makes no sense, right? So you kind of have to. Every car's got its personality, but the bottom line is,
or that one bolt on my suspension that came loose,
right? Which again, same thing. Though I've never actually seen that in my entire life.
We have a way.
But you every car develops a little bit of personality, so you kind of take this. Suspension, you check every bolt on suspension every single time. You check every bolt on brakes from the caliper pins, if your car has guide pins and slides, caliper slides, to caliper bolts, you check them every single time, period. The bigger stuff, subframe bolts, engine mounts, you may not. You do a visual. Right. And again, your car may develop a personality where you do have to check those.
Right. Especially as it gets older or you use it more.
And Jay, obviously the simple ones, we do all fluids too.
We do.
You check the fluids or you change the fluids?
Check.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
If it's a really hot day, we may change the oil in the car.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But our cars usually, I'm not to pat myself on the back, but our E36, man, that oil comes out the same color it goes in no matter how many hours are on that car. That car does not get hot.
Oh, let's keep it that way. Okay, so you finish, let's say it's a 2-day race.
Mm-hmm.
You finish the race. You collect trophies. We go cry in our towels.
Sometimes we cry in our beer bill.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll cry in my Slurpee. Hopefully there's a Slurpee nearby. You just put the car away into the trailer?
No, it goes in the trailer with a list.
Goes in a trailer with a list. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I asked.
Yeah. So Dean, you want to throw in on how that magical piece of cardboard that we throw underneath the windshield wiper usually?
Yeah, it's just part of our deal. I mean, that's the car always has a piece of cardboard, taped to it and with a Sharpie, and it's our ongoing list, and it's part of our routine. Whether it's something that we need for in the morning to do when we get there, something we need to do after the race. Maybe we have to go pick up some parts. Things break. We might have to go to wherever, Walmart, AutoZone, or whatever. But we constantly work off a list, and we do the same when we load the car. So we know what we have to do, and we also do it with our spares. So if we are in our spare bins, we know that we don't want to find out the next race that we took whatever. It doesn't matter what it was. It could be some ductwork, hose, and we had a weird brake hose or ducting that we used because we had a little off. We want to make sure it's there for the next time. So we definitely make sure we keep our list pretty complete.
I guess I'm assuming that this list takes place throughout the entire weekend, because I just know that when we're loading a trailer at the end of the day, it's exhaustion. Mm-hmm. And you're pretty much loading on adrenaline only at that point. And we're lucky to kind of get everything together in a way packed where we can actually make sense of it when we're on the other end.
There's a point when that changes. I could tell you. I could tell you the race that I know it changed for us.
We're still looking for that race.
We would love to, because we're always trying to find better ways of doing things. Well,
I think is just growing pains. And there's no suggestion I can give you. It just
Jay, what race, by the way?
Well, I remember being at Watkins Glen with you guys and being in the car, and you were comfortable enough to leave one person in the pit with one fire extinguisher, one gas jug, and you guys unloaded unloaded our pit stall an hour before the race was over. Where every race before that, we were biting our nails, everybody standing in the pit on comms, and we were in the Glen, and we felt good enough about the car. We felt good enough about the team. We felt good enough about the circumstances to just disappear and start getting the work done so we can not be there till 2 a.m. loading the trailer with security staring at us, which we had done at every race prior.
Oh.
You know the feeling?
You know that yet. No, we've always got out when we were told, which is
at that minute.
Sometimes it looked like the Sanford and Son parking lot inside of our trailer.
It's yeah. And sometimes and I think this could have been one of the reasons why we realized that Bill and I were doing too much, is
2 cars,
because we were taking most of the responsibility on ourselves, including loading and unpacking, and then unpacking again, you know, um, that, you know, I don't know if you've ever had that breaking point when you're just like, oh, you know, there's got to be an easier way. There's got to be an easier way.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the answer is there isn't. Right.
Right.
I think that's the problem. So the only thing you could do is you can budget your time better, right, Dean? I mean,
Yes.
instead of doing it all in the last 45 minutes, you just get good enough where you spread it out. You know, there's a reason why the military works off of lists. There's a reason why helicopter pilots get in helicopters and have checklists, and commercial pilots and all those things. And it's because of adrenaline. It's because of monotony. It's because of being tired, you know, looking at that list. And again, I mean, I wish there was a hard, and Dean, you jump in, but on this, because I know we have tried. There's no source to go on the internet and say, give me a list of what I need. You have to develop it.
Right.
And you also, I think a lot of it was, you know, when you're, you know, especially in the second half of a race, you know what you have so much stuff down at the pit, for example. You start knowing that, okay, I don't need 15 gas jugs. So if you're going to leave the pit and you're going back up towards the trailer, you should leave with a purpose. You can't just, you know, say I'm going to run up as a team member. You need to start helping out. And I think as a team, we've gotten better. If you're going back, you're either bringing something because we need something, or we're trying to pare things down and start getting, and not just put them in the right spot. That was one of the things that we used to do, is just load the trailer to get the hell out of there. And then someone, which is Jay, had to deal with his trailer that he couldn't find because it was all over the place, and it wasn't really respectful to a lot of his gear. And so we kind of figured it out. And so when you go back, put it away, put it where it belongs, so that we can get out of there. And I think we haven't mastered it, but we've gotten better.
Yeah, it's time. You know, car prep, race prep, it's time management. The more time you have to be able to take a breath, the better off you are. You know, take a minute. I'm going to tell you right now, if you have a BMW E36 or E46, there are 5 items you need to bring to the pit stall with you aside from tires. You need to bring spare oils, a spare injector or 2, spare plugs, right, and a spare belt, and you need an 18 millimeter. I mean, that's pretty much what you need to bring down to the pit. So set yourself up a box.
And a big-ass hammer.
BMFH, that's correct. Bring a fuel pump relay and a spare DME, and throw them in a box. And make sure that box goes to the pit stall every single time. Don't leave it in the garage. Bring it down. And then you don't have to worry about that dynamic of, the car's misfiring on 5. What do I do? And then Dean runs to the garage, digs through a bin that he didn't put together, that he doesn't know what he's really looking for, but he's the only mobile guy in the pit. Do yourself a favor and figure those items out and do it. And unfortunately, again, I mean, I wish there was a hard source. It's car dependent. It's team dependent.
Sure.
And here's just one more question I have. How do you guys solve your radio problem?
We don't have it.
You don't have radios. Radio management and radio storage has always been an issue. Apparently, not everybody uses them.
Yes.
So
they don't have a problem.
Yeah, it's all yours, Hesser.
Yeah, we had a big issue at VIR when Jay was in the car. I'm winning, and I'd been in the pit all day not saying, but from the morning to whatever time it was the second day. I think it was second day, right? Yep. And so I said it was 2:00 or so, or 3, and I wanted to go grab something to eat, and I asked the Laszlo at the time, and I'm not blank. It's just these are things that you learn. And I said, hey, I'm going to go grab something to eat. Am I good to go? And I said, and by the way, my phone's dead. Should I grab a radio? And he's like, no, you're good. Just be back here and whatever at a certain time. And another one of our team members came and joined. He didn't grab a radio either. And we went and grabbed something to eat. And there was an issue with Jay coming in early, a little bit earlier than expected. And
I had no fuel.
And Laszlo was texting Keith, who was on the thing. Keith wasn't answering his texts, and we get back, and Jay, not only did he come in, he had to get out, help fuel the car, and because there was no one there, and we ended up, I took it I fell on the sword for the team. I know I told Jay later on, and he was mad. He was definitely pissed, because we went from winning the race to not winning the race, all over communication. And I'm like, I don't know, I'm going to take the heat, and I did. And then, I eventually kind of filled him in that I did ask the proper questions. I should have known better. I should have took the radio. You never leave the pit without a radio, and that was our moment. And I think after that, do we forget it from time to time? And you run into that. Yeah, but we are pretty much, when we get to the race in the morning, we try that everyone gets their radio, and you turn it on to our channel. And that's your deal.
Right. You go nowhere without your radio.
And then when the day's over, you hand your radio back. They go on chargers, and then you'll get your radio in the morning. And it sounds like we have a lot of fun, but we're just tired of having those same mistakes that we were making. That were making us just not. Running back and forth is not fun. Losing a race over not knowing when someone's coming in because they have a car issue and not being there, or having the right gear there because you didn't take a radio. You go to the bathroom, take a radio. And that's what we do.
Had a conversation the last race while you were in the bathroom, actually.
What's that?
I think you and I had a conversation when you were.
Yeah, I did.
Yes.
Yes,
you had your headset on and everything. Yeah. As you guys know, when you fuel a car in these endurance races, there is a fixed number of people you need to fuel the car. And if you don't have enough people, you can't do it, right? So the problem was, I'm not glad Dean fell on the sword, but I know he did, because there were two other teammates who were MIA, and you couldn't get a hold of them. And there is no reason at any point in a race when you're racing to have teammates not know when they're supposed to be back. And I mean, we have all funny stories that go with that too, but Dean's point is well taken. It's easy to forget those little things, like take the radio, and they have consequence on a race weekend.
For sure.
Now, and by the way, I own that. That's my issue. I in the pit, I don't necessarily run. I'm not communication with the car, but if it's supposed to be in the pit, set up, break down the pit, what's there, that's me, and that's radios, and that's getting the car on the grid in the morning, making sure everything's there for when the car gets there, and we're ready to start a race as well as end it. And so if the other guys are walking away, and even though they're equal teammates, and they're like, hey, I call them out and say, hey, here's your radio, don't go anywhere, or you got to stay here, and that's how we run it. Everyone has a task.
And don't cheap out on the radio in your car. That'll be the fastest way to fix your problems. It sucks, but the handheld in the car does not work. You have to suck it up and put an actual real radio in the car, because you can't.
I agree.
Track, you can't communicate. You have those dead spots.
Who knew? Okay. All right. So we've loaded our car, or sometimes a truck, into the trailer. We take it to the garage back home. We unload it. Obviously, you have to fix any issues that happen. If something happened, if you dented something, if something broke, or something doesn't feel right, that you got to fix those. But something tells me, from the tone of our conversation before, that even if you're a really good race team, the odds on you going 3,000 miles in a weekend aren't good. But something tells me you're going to change the oil. Just a guess.
Oh,
well, that's a given.
Do you want to count how many times we've checked the oil, changed the oil on our race cars?
Usually
Not so much
before the races. Yeah. No, because either we change them or we have them sent out to be changed, depending on if we're already having them do tires for us. We've been pretty good.
Is there any other fluids or any other things that you do to do a post-race?
After a 16-hour endurance race, we change everything.
Everything? So
everything. So, we change diff, especially diff, because that poor thing got beat up for 2 full days.
So how do you change that? Because I know they've got that weep hole where you fill it. Is there a drain hole too?
I'm going to give you a lawyer answer. It depends, right?
Thank you.
On a BMW, there is a drain hole on a rear diff, whether it's a small 188 millimeter, which would be E36s, E30s, old 5 Series, or the larger modern 230 diff, which is an M3, M4, etc. There is a drain and a fill.
Okay.
on things like solid axle Chevrolets, where you have a 10 bolt, like an old Camaro.
Yeah.
I think you guys have one of those somewhere.
Yep.
No, there is a drain hole. So you have to take the differential cover off in order to drain the fluid.
Oh, okay.
And or I mean, you could pump it too.
Okay. And then you do transmission fluid as well?
I do. We certainly do. We run coolers in all of our cars for both the diff and the trans, so it's a little more of a project, but we do change the fluids all the time. It's cheap insurance. Again, you think about the weekend. Diff is a hell of a lot more money than the oil that goes in it.
Yeah, for sure.
Jay,
So-
we're down to even before we charge our battery. I mean, we're down to if we don't go to a race without making sure we have our battery fully charged, and a lot of people overlook that.
Sure.
Yeah, the car is in the trailer on a tender on the drive. Yeah.
So I don't know if you know the history as exquisitely as we do, but there's this thing called a power steering pump in a Chevy truck that we are on power steering pump number 8, I believe, 8 or 9. Would you change the power steering fluid or
Every time?
Every time? Okay. All right.
Yeah, but we don't like with power steering fluid, we don't go crazy, right? So I literally will just take the extra out of the reservoir.
Okay.
Like a turkey baster, although it's not actually turkey baster, it's just take it out with a turkey baster. Or if you're fancy pants like us and have Mighty Vacs and stuff like that, you do that. And then you just change. That's enough. That's like 50 or 60%. It'll cycle itself through, good to go. But the rest, sure. I mean, we got to remember, power steering fluid gets hot. Like it gets there's a cooler. Most power steering circuits have a cooler someplace on the car. And on a race, you're asking a lot of that little power steering pump to turn those tires. when the car's loaded up at a G.5 going through a corner. So they get hot. It gets hot.
That's why we change it usually every day.
Well, didn't you catch fire because of power steering?
I mean, there's rumors that say that. Yeah, we caught fire twice.
Power steering pumps usually run automatic transmission fluid. That stuff's really flammable. Just so you know.
Yeah.
Transmission leak way scarier than an oil leak.
Yeah, we know. I mean, yeah, we've heard. And then basically it's rinse repeat. You just do the same thing from that point on to prep for the next race, right?
Yeah, and again, not to be funny, but we wash the car, right? I mean, I wash the car and I pay attention to what I'm washing. It's not just pressure washer, blast the crap off of it. It's we wash the car. I look at all the joints. I wash the inside of the car, which is not fun. Usually I send Hesser through the lattice work to get the rear window because I can't fit my fatness back there. I'd like to say it's my shoulders. Maybe that was true 20 years ago, but now it's just all. So Hesser gets back there, but we look at everything on the car, and not to be funny, but that wash, getting intimate with your car, tells you a lot about what's going on at any given moment. And God forbid it rains on a race weekend. I mean, you've raced in the rain.
Oh yeah.
Car gets a whole different kind of dirty. Like it's on the roof, it's in the truck deck, anywhere. There's a hole there. There is grime, not just tire worms. So we wash the car. It's a big problem.
And we do it also from make sure that when it's up on the lift, I'll go over and clean as much of the grime I can on the undercarriage, just so if we do have a leak or whatever, it's hopefully a little bit easier to identify. Go crazy, but I do if we have time. And I'm standing there and Jay's doing something mechanical, I'm going to clean the bottom of the car.
Like every sous chef should. So do you do the engine compartment as well?
Yep.
And you just
hopefully it's a BMW so it doesn't leak terribly, but yes, we wash everything. Radiator especially, we spend a lot of time with the radiator. I mean it picks up every bit of road grime, every bit. I mean, ours is ducted, so any air that comes through the front of the car is smashed through that radiator. I remember we blew an oil cooler line at practice. I think it was a Lime Rock on a shakedown. I mean, we just smoked like 5 quarts of oil through the front of the car. Luckily, I turned the car off and coasted into the grass, and didn't wreck the car because it was bad. I would 3 races, it was still weeping oil out of the radiator, Dean, right? I mean,
yeah. Was that the same guy?
It's just dawning on me. I said, it's just dawning on me how negligent we've been, in our learning process. Granted,
racing,
it's our
and
learning
I'm going to
process.
turn this over to Dean in a second, but, racing takes that old, I think, construction, old apprenticeship, theory of, lessons are expensive and the really good ones are really expensive. I think racing, I hate to say it, but that's pretty much racing right there. Mm-hmm. Dean, would you agree?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. And then Jay, I was just going to ask you, was that the Lime Rock weekend that the fire extinguisher came loose?
Yes.
Okay. There's a story.
It's been drilled into me. Don't touch that button. Don't touch that button. It's going to be such a mess if you touch that button. And Jay goes out, and the fire extinguisher bracket broke loose. I don't know what turn, and it went off.
Downhill flat. Yeah.
Oh.
He came in. I'm like, what the hell?
So the bottle slid and smashed into the trans tunnel and triggered the bottle. So all the nozzles in the car were spraying me as I'm coming out of the downhill onto the Sam Posey straight, and I'm just getting. I mean, it's in my pants. It's in my. And I'm like, I missed the pit in, so I'm trying to reach over and turn the bottle off or reach down and move the bottle, and I just literally made it all the way around track, and I pull in, and it's like just spittering out of the nozzle, like, and Hesser looks at me and he's like, "What happened to you?" And I look out of the car. I look like the Michelin Man. I was covered in foam. I mean, the car was just, it was hilarious. It was absolutely hilarious. Yeah. It was a good thing it was practice. Yeah.
So we do check the fire extinguisher straps now.
It's a good plan.
So there's a perfect one. It's like the one I never thought of. Oh, check the hose clamps check the clamps on the fire bottle. And whoops.
Yeah.
Right.
So do you guys do the same thing for HPDE on track days, or I mean, obviously doing my races,
but it's a 20-minute session or 40-minute, 30-minute session. So you're like, the brake pads I got to change them in between sessions. I'll change them. Where a race, if I'm at 50%, that thing's not going back out the next time unless the pad. So to a degree, sure.
Right.
Cool. All right, Miss Vicky, your favorite.
I know, guys. This is time for the Fast and Furious Story Time questions.
Oh, great.
We're gonna pound on Dean now, and of course, John, you jump in because we have a couple
Ask me the
questions.
new ones.
All right. So, all right. John, of course, the Fast and Furious, they're just rapid fire. We get to know you just a little bit better on a more personal level, and your likes and your dislikes, and a little bit of history. So, Bill, do you want to kick off the first one?
Sure. All right, Dean. We already know this for John, but if he wants to come in again, we can do that, just in case people didn't listen the first time. What was your first car, and what was the worst car you've ever had?
Oh my gosh, I've had so many bad cars. My first car was a 1983 Chevy Chevette, two-tone brown, no power steering, so I put a trucker knob on it. And it
so did you tell your friends that you had a vet? Is that what you said?
No, I wish. And it had a rear wiper. That was the only option on it, and that was my first car. And the way I got out of that car was my sister. I had to drive 4 miles to go to like the bus stop, and if I could get her there, she could go on the bus. My buddies could hop in my Chevette, and we could drive to school, which was like 20 miles in the town. And we lived down in Lords Valley, and I went to Wallenpaupack, and she wouldn't get in the car, so I caught her by the neck as she was going around the car, and I had her held up like, "You get in this car," and I had it in reverse, and I ran into a huge rock in our driveway, and the whole rear end of the car basically fell like a bumper. It was bad. And my dad came out, and he was getting out of the shower, and he's like, "Put your sister down, get out of that car." And that was it. It was towed away, and he deemed it unsafe for a teenager. So that was my first car.
Before you get into your worst car, Dean, please tell them what your sister's first car was.
An M3.
Yeah,
Wow.
No. But what year, and was it an
Square?
E?
It was a square body. Yeah, M3. Yeah, with BBS wheels, all decked out white, and I had a Chevette.
It's almost the same.
Worst car? I have no idea. I had Geo Storms. I had Geo Trackers. I had Chevy Berettas. I had Corsicas. I had Camaro Berettas. I had so many bad cars. I had El Caminos.
What was the car with the aero kit? The multi-layered aero kit.
Oh, that was probably the Beretta GTU. Yes, it was. I had the big fin. With a strong like 6-cylinder, three point. I think they were 3.0. What are they? 3.1s or whatever they were. They were so craptastic. But yeah. I had every bad car. Yeah, so there's not a single one.
It's like an adventure for you.
Yes.
So, what family car, not just yours, but like your parents, sticks out the most?
Oh,
when you were young.
For me, that's easy. That's a Caprice Classic, like a state wagon. I mean, we packed in, 4 people across the front seat. My dad, drinking a beer. My mom smoking a cigarette with a gallon of wine between her legs and probably pregnant. And a bunch of kids, in the back, and my dad trying to catch someone's head in that rear window that you could put up. That was we spent a lot of time in a wagon.
Was it a Woody or no?
No, it had fake wood. Yeah, of
Oh,
course.
okay. All right, very well. I was just making
absolutely.
Did it have the forward seats or the back facing seats?
Back. Oh, absolutely back facing in the back. Yeah.
You can watch the accident hit you from the back end.
Right.
And actually,
terrifying is that now?
Help you eject.
The only thing I was jealous of, my neighbor had one of those Brats. What were they?
Subaru Brat.
Yeah.
Subaru Brats with the little plastic seats that you sat in the back. They looked like race seats, but you had no protection. You just sat in the back of the pickup and drove around.
I'm surprised we even survived our youth. I mean, seriously.
You had to get around that chicken tax. So, anyway.
Well played, Bill. That was impressive.
Hey, look at that. I can fake being a lawyer a little bit.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we did this one for John, but maybe we'll see. Actually, I know. Let's do this a different way. Dean, what's one thing about John that nobody knows? And John, what's one thing about Dean that nobody knows?
That would surprise.
Married?
Yes.
It's like couples therapy.
That's right.
Oh my gosh.
It's always more fun this way.
Who's supposed to go first, me or him?
Either way, whoever comes up with something. Dean's puzzled right now.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, that you're sensitive.
You're sensitive.
yeah. That's he's so sensitive.
The problem is Hesser's really like an open book, right?
Yeah.
I don't know anything about Dean.
How about one thing that would surprise them, not something that they don't know?
I got 2 of those,
That's
right?
okay.
Both are car related, so it's very appropriate to this.
Okay.
Number 1 is, despite the fact that Dean is an incredibly good businessman, as clearly shown by his dealership, the cars he drives, what he does, all of those things, he basically gave away his silver Z8 for approximately what the car was worth to pay for it, right? That's
yes. Well, actually less. Yes.
Right.
I gave it away
because it was a deal. So that car, that's the one horrible decision that Dean has made in his car life.
Oops.
Yeah.
And the
There's a
other
reason.
one, there is the other one. Dean, I don't want to steal your thunder about the H1 Hummer, but Dean had an H1 Hummer solely so he looked taller than he is. Everybody assumes you must be really big to drive one of those around.
That actually may be my worst purchase, but anyway, yes. Oh God.
So were you a Hummer dealer at the time?
No, I traded it to from another Chevy dealer. His dad was going out of town, and he had about 3 or 4, and he wanted to go on a road trip, which you can't take a Hummer where he was going. So he said, "Would you trade me?"
It's more who he was going with.
Yes. Yeah. And he said, will you trade me for a 7 Series? And I said, well, I'll trade you for a 7 Series and $20,000 in cash, which I took. It was a great deal for me, I thought, until I realized how bad a Hummer was. I mean, it was awful. I showed up. It was when my wife was pregnant. She couldn't get in the car.
That's awesome.
Every day I'd go out and I'd get in my garage and all the wheels were linked. So one leak, they all leaked.
Yep.
And so I had to start it up and vibrate the house while I was trying to get it so I could get it out of the garage. And it was a disaster.
Yeah, when I think transporting my my pregnant wife around town, I think, hey, honey, let's go get the Hummer.
Yeah. But I did sell my Z8 because my daughter was at the time. I went out in the garage and she was taking a bike and she was 4 years old and she was going to drag it right down the side. And I grabbed it and I'm like, I just have a newborn. I really don't need this 2-seater. When are we ever going to use it? And I don't ever get mad at my kids when I'm in the car business over a car. That's other things, but not a car. And so I ended up selling that car for about $80,000 or $90,000 with 3,500 miles. Cost on it was $127,000. It's currently worth what, Jay? About $250,000, $275,000.
Didn't I find that car, like literally your car? Didn't I find it on Bring a Trailer last year? Like that.
You pretty much you were trying to torture me with it. Yeah.
You're
So
you're welcome.
and I was tempted. I was like, should I buy it back? I'm like, I just can't do it. I just can't do it. It was my favorite car, by the way. It was a great car.
All right, so Dean, you get to get even now.
All right.
Okay. I don't even. It's hard. I mean, again, because Jay. I mean, I know there's. I don't know if there's a lot of things. You're kind of straightforward. I mean, I know. I think I missed I listened to some of the podcasts. I'm not sure, but not all of it. I'm not sure what you told him. I mean, Jay, he's. I don't know if a lot of people know he's a very good chef. I don't know if he told you that. He's a very good cook.
That's new.
Yeah.
I was going to say you don't have to worry about people listening to the podcast. Nobody does. So I mean, you can just say the same
I'm
thing.
getting more and more to know John as an overachiever.
Oh yeah, he's definitely an overachiever, and I would, but that's a good thing. I mean, I'm the same way. Yeah. I don't know.
You never want to be called a surprise overachiever.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
True.
Yeah, I mean that's something that I don't know. I mean, he's covered. I'm sure he's covered that he's a very good snowboarder.
Yep.
I haven't yet to see him climb anything. Apparently, he used to be a pretty good climber, but I haven't even seen him climb my driveway, so I'm not quite sure. I'm not sure if I'm buying it, but whatever.
Very good.
All right. Very well.
All right, Dean. Automatic or stick? See where you
stick.
are in your life.
What's that?
See where you are in your life. Automatic or stick?
Oh, stick.
Okay.
Easy. I don't think we asked John. Did we ask you, John?
You have to?
Yeah.
No, not really.
Right.
I was just being entertaining.
I don't want it.
I was trying to keep you involved.
Yeah. No, we
All right.
more of the I enjoy a stick a lot, but in order for me to drink coffee on the way to work, sometimes it's just like a good manual, an automatic.
You can drink coffee and have a stick, or you can drink a Slurpee in my case and have a stick. That's not an excuse.
Yeah.
What is it? Motion denied, John? Is that what we're saying?
We could.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Very well. Do you have a favorite race driver? I mean,
I do.
Besides John, obviously. I mean,
I have two actually. Mine growing up, my grandfather on my mom's side was a big IndyCar fan, so I grew up watching his. He loved AJ Foyt, so AJ Foyt was one of my guys. I always liked him. I always liked how he was always. He wasn't well liked. He definitely has the same kind of, I think. He liked to fight everybody, kind of like me. And then there was one that might surprise you. It would be a guy named Al Holbert, and my mom's brother, which was kind of unique. He was legally blind, but he was his head mechanic. He owned a Porsche, Audi, Volkswagen store down in Horsham, and he ran the Porsche service department until he retired. And Al was he was an IMSA guy. He ran an old, I think it was a 962 Porsche, and I just used to go to the back and watch him work on the cars when I was a kid. And I think he won 49 IMSA or 50 IMSA races. Won I think was the Camel Series like 5 times. Wow. So that was the only guy. I mean, I actually knew that was a race car driver really growing up, because I'd hang out in the shop with my uncle and just, killing time, riding my bike and all that while they were prepping cars in the back of it, because their shop was actually in the back of the dealership. So,
John, did we do race driver for you?
You did. It's still Fernando Alonso, followed by Scott Pruitt.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
That's a good song. Yeah.
Very well.
All right, guys.
Go ahead, Ben.
Front wheel, rear wheel, or 4-wheel drive, or it doesn't matter.
Oh, rear wheel drive.
We know, John. We know. Okay.
Yeah.
Motor at the front, transmission in the middle, power at the back.
Yeah.
Simple equation.
That's right. That's right. The hand signal made that even better. Okay, Dean, I think we know the answer, but just in case John didn't get enough torture, do you have a car that got away?
Yes, the Z8. You got it.
Okay.
Is that the one
John, do
was
you ever let a
talking
car
about?
get away?
Yeah, that was my E30 M3 that I sold when I went to law school.
That's right.
Oh,
Dumbest thing I ever did.
Law school or selling the car? Very well.
The line was full for trust funds when I was a kid. I mean, I tried.
Understood. So, Dean, what is the fastest that you've ever driven a car? What car and where? Especially if the statute of limitations has expired.
2 years.
yeah, probably. Oh boy, probably it's probably my car. I would think probably at the fastest probably would be Watkins Glen, and it'd be, what would you say, going to 150, 140?
Yeah, one,
Yeah, 50 into the bus stop, I would say. Yeah.
Or no.
What's that?
There's never been a moment on Route 84 that you've exceeded the top speed of your E46 M3.
I know, because the thing, no, because you always hit a governor. Yeah, those crappy governors are on that either BMWs had or because Bill, my dad and I used to play a game every day. We'd go to work in the summer. We would race from Hemlock Farms in Lords Valley to Scranton every day, and he always had a Corvette. I always had like a crappy IROC Camaro, and every day he would beat me. And then there was one day I said, I got a 2-minute head start. He would always catch me around Mount Cobb. And so one day I said, you know what, you go first. And it was a lunch. I had to buy him lunch every day. So he's like, you gotta be kidding me. I said, yeah, get out of here. I said, I'm going to beat you. And sure enough, I come over where John's exit is, one of his for the lake Wallen.
Currently it's 20. Now it's exit.
Yeah, and
6. Now it's 20.
Yeah, and there was a cop already out standing in the middle of the road, like with the radar, like you see it in the movies, holding the radar at me, and I'm like, holy! And I was probably going like 125 when the speed limit was 55 at the time.
Wow.
Huh? Yeah, it was like ready to break apart, and I slammed on the brakes, pulled over, and had my hands up, license, registration ready for him, and he literally ripped me out of the car, dragged me to the back of the car, threw me on the back, and just searched the car, searched me, basically went up and down and gave me this obnoxious ticket, and I continued to work, paid my dad his sandwich, never said anything, and about 3 days later, my father, paged me up to his office. He said, listen, you little bastard. He goes, I know you were pulled over. I go, how did you know I was pulled over? Because I wasn't pulled over. He goes, yeah, you were, because I got pulled over first. and he goes, and he said to the cop, because we knew all the cops, but he knew all the cops. He goes, no, you got to let me go. My son's going to be coming over faster than I am. And he goes, whatever you do, just give him a ticket, but don't give him a ticket. And that was the setup. My dad set me up to get my ass beat by a cop when I was 19. So yeah, a lot of fun.
I had like 35 therapy sessions, and look where he is now.
That's right.
Awesome.
He was like 6'8" until his dad kept banging him on the head.
Right out.
All right. So do you have a dream car for the road or for the race?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, I listen. I'm an M guy. I like a M2. I like an M4, an M5. Any of those cars are I think are awesome daily drivers, and I look forward to driving them. I mean, more than anything else that I have had an opportunity to drive, and if I could just take a factory race prep version of one of those delivered to my driveway for Christmas, that'd be perfect.
Is Leslie in the room? Could she hear that?
No, she'd kill me. I'm on a strict budget this year.
Oh man.
Oh.
Right. Dean,
Yes.
if you could drive any car or race any car from one decade, what decade would you choose?
For the rest of your life.
Boy. Oh boy.
You can't
Yeah,
drive anything else. You got one decade.
I didn't know the rest of your life, but I'd like to go back to where cars were scary, like really scary. So maybe late 70s, early 80s. Yeah.
No?
I'm not sure what I'd pick, but I'd probably pick I'd pick an open wheel. If you put me into like a formula car back then where, consequences were pretty bad if you messed up. But I just like, that's what I grew up watching, and I used to have slot cars. They were the cars, so I kind of like that era.
So it's you and Senna and Prost up at the front of the field. We'll figure it out.
Awesome. Yeah, and Hesser dropping fastly to the back.
Oh, that's fantastic. All right, Dean, the question Vicky won't ask because she hates it. Jeremy, Hammond, May, Chris, Matt, other?
Probably Jeremy.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. I was thinking we were going to get a who.
You weren't going to get Hammond out of him. You were going to a who? No. He knows. He knows what's up.
Okay, very well.
Right. What is the ultimate road trip from and to and in what car?
It wouldn't be a car.
No?
I would take a GS BMW 1200 from Cabo to Alaska.
Wow.
Motorcycle.
Funny how similar that was to mine, right?
Ah.
Was it? What did you say?
I said my old Rover from the tip of Baja to Prudhoe Bay.
Oh, that's funny. I didn't know that. That's cool.
Can't tell these two are on the same team. Okay, so what is your favorite car movie or car from a movie of all time?
Oh, no doubt. Back to the Future, DeLorean. I got a lot of skeletons, Bill. I like to fix a lot of things in my past. I need that DeLorean.
He's thinking like 2015, Toyota Supra, first race. That's the first thing.
You might need more from that Mr. Fusion than it's got, though. Okay.
I froze.
Okay. Vicky froze. So what car would you love to switch into that you currently race against or have raced in the past, and at what track? So you get to take the driver out and you put yourself in.
I have a phobia against safety.
Apparently, you want to drive a 70s or 80s.
Yeah, but car, in that time, that's why I think because I probably wouldn't do it. But in all honesty, that's kind of funny. We're named safety third, so I don't really like hopping in other people's cars, to be honest with you, because I don't know what I'm getting into. Okay. So but there's some cars. I'd like to take the Random Vandals car. They're new. They're M4 because I know that's a factory prep car. It's definitely prepped. It's definitely safe. And I'd love to rip that car.
Okay, I'll take advantage of knowing the both of you. Which car from Laszlo's teams would you want to go into?
Frank.
Does automatic racing count, or does that not count?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask.
It's whatever car you want.
Is it Laszlo's driveway?
No.
Is that what we're talking about?
The teams that Laszlo works with.
Okay. Oh gosh.
All right.
Listen, he worked with Random Vandals for a while. I agree with Dean that M4 GT4 is just sweet, but I would not mind taking the new Aston Vantage GT4 for a rip just to hear that thing.
Yeah,
because it sounds so good.
Oh, sure. What about you, Dean? Did the same?
Yeah, I mean they're really the two premier cars that he's really kind of worked on, and I said it earlier, yeah, definitely the Random Vandals, and yeah, I would comfortably hop into the Aston, absolutely.
Okay, so welcome, Laszlo. Laszlo, are you going to hook these? Oh, just kidding. Go ahead, Vic. You unfroze yet?
I am unfroze. I
Okay.
am not frozen anymore. So
Okay. Why don't you just let it go?
I'll let it go. All right. So telemetry in a car, thoughts, pluses and minuses?
I think Dean is spot on for this one. I mean, I know you covered it with me, but Dean has really become tight.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to. I mean, I'm overwhelmed by it. There's so much, but I'm a firm believer that you can't get better without it. You need to know where your opportunities are, and like I said before, just so you don't get lost in the data. I'm not quite sure in a race how much you really want exposed and how important it is. Other than I don't really even care if I have a lap time, as long as I know somebody's tracking it in the pit. Tell me, hey, get on pace, because I don't want to focus on it. But I really like data when I get out and of the car and if I'm working on something, or to understand like where I was giving up time, so that maybe the next day I can come back and it could be a break point, it could be whatever, and just make sure that I get it correct. So I'm not sure what your opinion is.
Here's a question. Here's a question for you. Really, is as someone who has now come into data, really using it as a tool to get better. What channels do you primarily focus on when you're downloading and trying to find track time? What data streams is it? Is it throttle trace, brake trace, G's? What are you really looking at when you're sitting there going over data with your reference line?
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, a lot of it is just first of all, it's the overlay of their lap or the perfect lap, and a lot of it is my problem is pedal, my pedal work, so that's what I kind of focus on, and I have a tendency to where my break points are, being consistent, from one lap to the other. And I definitely focus on that. I focus on, where am I on brake and when am I getting back on power, and mostly full power. Obviously the quicker you can get back to full power, the faster your laps are going to be. So how do I accomplish that? I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what I look at.
I know that the Apex that I was racing with, again, after the skid pad.
Apex Pro.
Yeah, the Apex Pro is what I was using. And I didn't really understand how it worked. I just want to get out and drive. And it wasn't, again, skid pad, car balance, putting the Apex in, then that last race that I did for the season is when all that started stitched together. I'm like, oh, this is what it's doing. Okay. Because it only operates by lights, and then you get the feedback after. So as long as the lights were where I wanted them to be, because it was already trained to the track, for an HPDE, as long as I was kind of like doing and keeping the lights in a solid color, I was doing well without being overwhelmed by data, which was great.
So yeah, but what I do is when I'm in the car, I don't even look at it. It runs. I don't look at maybe when I go over start finish. I'll look at my time. You can break it down where it's telling you your segments, whether you're falling behind. And for me, I try to I think that's just for me, it's a distraction.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a lot better at going through and just doing, say, my 10 laps, whatever you get in a session, 12. When I get out of the car, I kind of want my own space. Like let me do my car stuff, check tire pressures, do all that, kind of decompress. There's a lot of time between sessions, and then then grab the video. And I have to, I work well with, I need a visual as well. So I like to see both. And then if whether it be Murph or Pete, who I've worked with, Pete Banks, I'd like to then do my whole session and then give me 2 or 3 things to go out and work on next session. I don't want more than that, because if it's just too much, and try to, I'm trying to understand the data. And then what I generally do is when I come back from the track, then when I have time, I'll go in front of a computer or sit on the couch, and then I try to really kind of break it down a little bit more and try to understand what the data is telling me, because there's so much. But the track, I only want 2 or 3 small things to kind of work on, and it could be certain segments, and that's how I approach it. And I think was it Jay at Watkins? I in one day I dropped, I don't know, 5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot.
Yep.
That's yeah, that's all it was. So,
Okay. What car, if any, would you want to wipe away from history besides your Chevette?
Chevy Vega.
Vega. Ooh, that's a new one. Awesome.
Yeah. We had a couple of Vegas in our household, and that was a peach of a car.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's special.
Yeah.
Miss Vicky.
Let me see. What is your favorite track so far, and why?
I haven't been to a lot. Not as many as Jay.
I think you have.
But I haven't been to some of the big ones that I want to get to, like Road Atlanta and the easy answer would be Watkins, because I'm really comfortable there. I've done more laps there. I mean, I don't even know how many, and it feels, and we've raced there
better than VIR, really.
No, that's what I'm getting to. I mean, that'd be the easy answer. I love the I would think that it probably VIR the full course, but I need to get back there. We only did the 24, so at this point, I would say that I agree with Jay in the sense that I didn't like Lime Rock. I've come to like it, but
love that part.
Yeah, it's you're around in a minute, and you're like, how hard can this be? You got one left-hander, all right hands. It doesn't seem hard at all. And next thing you're like, what the hell did I just do? I got nothing right, and I'm back here again. And then you do it again, and it's a real quick, short track that has a lot of complexity, more than what you think, and I find it a challenge, and going the uphill every time you lose a little air, you're like, what was that? And then to have the courage really to go downhill and say, all right, am I just going to breathe it a little bit, or am I going to go flat? And every time I cut it downhill, I question myself, what am I going to do? And I could have made 50 laps that day, and I'm like, okay, what am I going to do this time? Because it definitely, you got to put a set on, and so I do like that aspect of it, and I like the fact that when you pull up, it feels like you're pulling into a fairground.
Yep.
So
you may be the perfect candidate for turn 12 at Road Atlanta then.
I'm looking forward to it.
John, any change on yours, or you're still the same?
No, I really wish that I would be able to report back on Motorsports, but we had that race was canceled this year. But we are going next year. But I have a feeling that is going to make
your new favorite
lock from the number 1 spot.
Very nice. So I don't know if we asked you this, John, but it usually changes. What is your favorite turn so far, and why?
Oh, that's hard. Look, I love the downhill at Lime Rock. I love the left-hander at Lime Rock because it just to do it the way that I have practiced and been drilled into my head on how to do it from Murph, and you have met, who is a pro driver coach slash friend of ours, is great. But I don't know. I love Hog's Pen at VIR. I don't know. I love it because I am just literally every time just, it's so close to not being right. And I'm so close to putting it in the lawn. And it's so fast. I really like that turn a lot. I like NASCAR because it's terrifying in the rain at VIR.
Really?
Oh yeah. I can't think of it. Yeah. I mean, it's a scary place in the rain. Yeah. So I would say in no particular order, downhill left-hander, Hog's Pen, and NASCAR. Yeah.
Okay. Dean, what about you? You got one yet? You got a few?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I would. My number 2 would probably be going into the same section of VIR, which would be going into the roller coaster, into Hog's Pen. It's a fun section, and it's one of those that kind of seems like it changes every time. You're never getting the same line, either because of traffic or whatever. And and you want to carry, you got to catch that little pocket, and it's hard to get right. But I wonder what challenges me all the time. And again, I've done a lot of laps there, is Watkins Glen, going into the laces, going down into it, and making the left hand turn there.
Right.
And I've had more moments there trying to push that corner, because that's where I give up. A lot of time. I was giving up a lot of time. So right. It's just one that I always seem to break. Am I braking too soon? Should I be trail braking more here? And it's for me, it doesn't line up to my eyes very well, and I struggle with that turn.
A super high consequence turn too. People don't.
Yeah.
How about you, Bill? What's your favorite turn?
I like the turns that have multiple ways of getting around and none of them feel right.
You don't have a favorite one yet?
No, I'm getting there.
Okay.
So, do you remember Gingerman? I think it's 5 and 6 or 6 and 7. That's a double turn that you can kind of go this way, or you can apex it, you can ride the rim, you can shoot. There's a bunch of different ways to get through that turn. And then you've got Madness at Mid-Ohio. I like 6 and 7 at Road Atlanta. I might like 12 and 1 at Road Atlanta if it wasn't 33 degrees and raining when I was there. Those were fun. There's a couple turns at Laguna Seca I liked, but not the corkscrew. That was kind of boring.
Really?
Yeah.
I sorry to say, I kind of peed myself a little bit every time I was on the corkscrew. It was freaking scary. To me, it was just that whole thing just drop off and not really knowing where you're going.
Remember we were talking about how important seat inserts are when you share a car, Bill? There's another reason.
There's another reason.
Yeah, she could pee in her own seat insert. Yeah.
So I think mine is the swivel down at Atlanta. I love the S. It was great.
10A, 10A, 10B, or the S's?
The S's.
Oh, okay. Going into 5.
Yeah.
So. Okay.
It was just really smooth. I really liked it. Just zoom, zoom.
And then, far be it from me not to say virtually all of pit race, but that's just me.
We like pit race too, just not as much as you.
I know. I understand. So, Dean first, John second. In your opinion, how much of racing is learned versus how much of it is natural skill?
Oof. God, you need. Unfortunately for me, it has to be learned. So it's 99% learn, 1% skill. I just wish it was the other way, but I do think that it's probably 60-70% of it is natural, and probably 30% is learned.
Okay, John.
I don't disagree with Dean. I think that racing is one of those sports, though, that practice with coaching, or without, just proper practice will make you fast, because it can be a learned skill. If you are naturally talented as far as car feel, things like that, it comes faster. but everybody finds that same plateau, and the only way to really push through that plateau is through practice and training and muscle memory. And you want to shorten that distance and where the corrections take place, and the only way to do that is track time. So I think that, like most sports, if you're naturally fit for it, or whatever it is, you may progress faster, but it is a sport that rewards practice.
I think Vicky's going to get so excited.
Yeah.
For this next question.
Yeah, I know. I love them. Tell me what your best top 3 safety third sports motorsports race stories are. What are your top 3 stories in your race team?
Jay, we got to narrow those down. We don't have enough time.
I
But
mean,
I think we
I
covered.
want to hear. I mean, I know you guys are good. I just want to hear. Yeah.
I'll do the first one, Hesser.
All right.
It involves Hesser.
We like this stuff.
Although
most of them are going to
I
involve.
was driving, so it could easily be, like you could play the only child syndrome joke about this. But so imagine I get into the car firmly believing that I am in third place, and I'm going to arrive in third place based upon car position and lap counts. And it is the last stint on Sunday, and the pit is being unloaded. And I am, driving at 90+%, not crazy, but I'm moving along, but not nuts, because I know if I go too slow, the car behind me is going to catch me. And during that period of time, Dean gets on the radio and says, "Hey, now this is, mind you, 45 minutes or so into my stint." He says, "Hey, got some great news for you." I'm like, "What news is that, buddy?" And he's like, "You're winning." I'm like, "Excuse me?" He's like, "Yeah, you're in the lead." I'm like, "What?" He said, "No, you're winning. You're winning." And so apparently, in the backstory, my wife Alicia has been watching on Race Monitor or Race Hero, and texts him and says he's winning, and the car behind him is catching him. So Dean tells me the car behind me is catching me at a particular pace. So for the next hour, I drive that car as hard as I possibly can, running away from the car behind me, with Dean on the radio giving me deltas and telling me how far it is behind me. And I didn't catch a single break the entire time. Every time I would try to make distance in the back section of pit race, whereas the only place that our car could make time on a Camaro, because the Camaro is going to catch me in the back straight and the main straight. So every time I needed to come out of the S's through the back, there'd be 3 Miatas racing, legitimately racing. So I'm racing cars that are racing in different classes, and ultimately we won. But I literally saw that car gaining on me in the mirror for an hour. Saying, you're winning. And I had no idea. For the first 45 minutes I was in the car, I had no idea. I thought I was in third.
You thought you were just doing your thing.
Yeah.
All right, Dean, your ball.
I'm not sure. I mean, we talked about, Jay, maybe Keith in the car is always one of my favorite.
Best stories?
Yeah, that's one, but it's just, because every thing you get from him is woohoo, and then he goes silent, and then you don't hear him. You're like, what's going on? Or oh damn, and then he doesn't say anything else.
Or
so
big crash, big crash. Huh? Remember big crash?
Yeah, big crash. Yeah. But I don't know what the top. I mean, VIR was good. Good stories, fun stories. I mean, we had oh God, in the car. Jesus. I think my favorite one was watching. We're sitting there and I'm in the pit and by myself. It was VIR and I'm watching Keith. Keith was in the car and he's just kind of pounding laps and I'm thinking, okay, we're doing pretty good. He's all he has to do is just maintain what he's doing. And I'm just sitting there. I turn away and I look back down the straightaway and Keith's gone. Keith decided to go straight, and the one, and all you could see is just dirt, grass, and as Keith would do, no communication. You had no idea. Did he hit the tire wall? Did he hit whatever? And sure enough, Keith comes by, giving the little thumbs up, and it's just we have a lot of those things. Yeah.
So my other favorite story actually involves Dean. And it's funny because if you're ever in my office, like my actual office at my office, I have a section of wall with all of our trophies and team photos from each one of the races stacked up. And Dean is in his race suit, and he looks like he's like a 14-year-old kid beaming. I don't want to tell you what you look at and you think of what he was thinking about at that moment, but he's just beaming because we had horrendous rain, horrendous conditions at VIR. Yeah. And I think I know it was the first time that we won both races back to back. I remember Dean brought the car home the second day in the rain, in the misery. And, we had just had one of those days that nothing went wrong. Everything was perfect. The pit stops were perfect. And Dean brought the car back and he's still in his race suit. And I just remember them walking out and pointing where he's supposed to put the car and park for May so they could do the inspection. And he pulls right up to the front of the line. And I just remember the grin that he has on his face right now, like 4 times as big. Because, not to be cheesy or we worked really hard for a lot of time to get to that point, and to watch it happen 2 days in a row in horrendous conditions and have one of the original team members, enjoy that. It was cool.
Oh, nice.
And that was probably the most challenging race day, because you go around the VIR and the track would change, and we were only in the north, so the smaller course, and it would change 4 times, from dry. I learned a lot that day, because you go from rain, slick to dry. Temperatures were changing, and that was the same way. I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to tell Jay, but I'm going to have to. This is the day before, I think, because whenever he gets in the car, I have a problem. I leave a lot of evidence, and Jay has a tendency to be hopping in after me, and there's grass all the time. I mean, and I'm like, there's no way, because I don't always tell them what's going on if I can get away quick. And that same race weekend, I came to the top of the roller coaster, and you're doing the crossover, and I decided I'm awful. I am so bad when I'm by myself on the track, because I get bored. I need to be racing somebody. So I try to entertain myself. I'm like, you know what, I can go a little deeper here. And I went a little deeper, and I don't know if you've ever been to VIR. If you go deep there, it's straight down, and it's grass, but it's straight down a pretty steep hill. And I went straight, and car wasn't stopping. I wasn't turning, and I did about 3 360s, and car put clutch in. I'm ready to go, please. And I popped in at the end of Hog's Pen. Off I went. Maybe cost about 3 seconds. They didn't know anything, but there had to be 5 pounds of grass in the car. So Jay's like, what the hell? Something happened, Dean. I said, I'll tell you later.
It was literally blowing around inside the car while I was driving for the first 20 minutes. Yeah.
Oh, there's a bunch of those.
This guy drove by and threw dirt in my car. I don't know why.
Yeah.
All right. Since you guys have a mechanical talent that we are sorely lacking, we thought we'd ask one more section for you guys. Top 2 or 3 cool or helpful tools that you found that some people might be surprised with that help you with as a race team.
First and foremost, I would say at the track was buying a portable lift, which I know, Bill, you have one yourself.
Oh, they are so good.
Yeah, it's safer. When you nut and bolt the car, you're not picking this car up and jamming it on jack stands. You hope that the car is going to sit at under pressure,
or even worse, on jacks.
Yeah. So those are great. So they're life changing in the sense of we've changed transmissions, differentials, nut and bolted cars sitting on that lift as opposed to doing it on sketchy jack stands. I'm going to go with the most underrated tool, and Dean, I'm sure, is going to come with a bar tool when I'm done with this one. But torque wrench, they have a purpose. Bolts only stay tight when they stretch a certain amount. If they stretch too much, they usually break. If they don't stretch enough, they don't stay tight. So torque wrench for sure.
Bit of a window there.
Yeah, I have to say my favorite is a breaker bar. It really is for me. I'm loving the breaker bar.
Listen. I do what you say. You can put the breaker bar down. You don't have to keep chasing me with that.
Yeah, loving it.
Is it a Yeti cooler? Is it really truly a Yeti cooler for us? Is that really true?
Yes, it's pretty much. Yeah, that's our number one tool.
Your Yeti cooler. Oh, we have a Yeti. No, we don't have a Yeti cooler. We have the
Yeti impersonator.
Yeah.
We have a few.
We call it Bumbles.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. No joke on the Bumbles? All right, fine. Whatever.
I don't want to know why. I know you don't drink, so I don't.
Yeah.
Oh, Bumbles. He was the abominable snowman in the Rudolph the Red-Nosed
I'm
Reindeer.
not sure
thing.
where you're going with this.
I have no idea either. So I'm tired. I woke up way too early this morning.
Yeah, it is.
All right.
All right. Well, guys, this has been really great. How can our audience, follow you and keep in contact with your team?
Dean?
Well, Jay, you got all the handles, don't you?
Oh, well, I mean, our
What are the
Instagram is safety.
Yeah, he's our social media guy.
Oh, right.
I'm supposed to be the social media guy, but Jay has that task.
Listen, our presence is solid, as you could tell from having to ask how to follow us. No, we have Safety Third 3RD Motorsports on Instagram. It's the only social media we really do. Dean, you could follow at Tom Hesser Dealerships or Dean Hesser at Instagram. I'm sure you could find him at the dealership any day, or me at my law office, unfortunately, doing less fun things than Dean does every day. I'm not sure Dean would agree, as he does unfun things. So you can find us, and if you find us at the track, especially with NASA Northeast or HOD Northeast on track days, come ask. We'll help as best we can. And if it's a really bad day for you, our cooler's probably full. So as soon as we can help.
Always helpful. You could be the most popular people in the paddock if you got a full cooler.
Yeah, I learned a lot this episode. I did.
I don't know if that's a good thing.
It is. Of course, I have dollar signs right now chinging in my head. But this episode was definitely a growth piece for me, for my garage work.
Well, you guys have definitely made the right choice of consolidating and getting into the car that you're about to get in.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Dominating with Dawson.
Ben Dawson.
Hello.
Are you the Ben Dawson from Dominating with Dawson?
Same one.
Oh, well who thought I'd meet you here?
At the Domination Store?
The Domination Store. Wow.
Weird.
Awesome. It must be the Christmas season. La la la.
Gotta get ready for your race dance.
I do. So I'm going out racing, and we're at a short sprint race, and I can definitely have goals for that. But I think even more important, perhaps, because I haven't done sprint racing that much yet, maybe for endurance racing, it might be important to make sure that you have a goal for your stint, because, as part of a team, you've got responsibilities not only to yourself, to the car, but to the team. Because if you go out there and you use the car up and give it to somebody with no brakes, broken wheels, bearing, that's not exactly, one for all and all for one.
But
because in order to
but I was in the lead when I brought it in.
Yeah. That doesn't help, man. But maybe we should talk about stints for a race.
Well, I think.
Do you typically have goals?
I think if you're the superstar on the team, then your goal has to be, I'm gonna go out there, I'm gonna use the best part of the tire, so nobody else gets a faster time than I do, and then everybody else can just see what happens.
Oh, so you're the guy who has to be the fastest of the weekend in the car. I see what you're doing.
I'm just saying, if you're the superstar,
okay.
They know who they are. Game recognized game, Grandpa. Now,
that's Dr. Grandpa to you, buddy.
Dr. Grandpa. Yeah, there are a lot of things to take into account. Everybody's goal when they go out to run an endurance race is they want to run to the front and win their class or win overall. We all want to do that. But it takes having a real.
How many people win? I'm just curious. How many win?
One team wins.
One. Okay. All right. I was just checking.
But you have to go out there with a lot of all your knowns in mind and also some unknowns in mind. You don't know what's going to happen to you, but your goal is to go out there and you want to stay out there as long as your team has planned for you to stay out there. That's kind of your first goal, right?
Sure. Absolutely.
So you go out there. You also. Your goals for a stint should they be car specific? Like if you know your car has certain foibles or problems?
I think they could be. They don't necessarily have to be. I think let's take a step back. So does the team need to have a goal and then your goals come from that?
I think that sounds really good. So maybe the team's goals should inform my own goals.
Sure, I think
Yeah.
so. Because I mean, certain cars don't go to the track for every race thinking first or bust, right?
Right. That's true.
But some do,
Yeah. Some of us are going to go out
and those goals would be different.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely know, at least with our team, sometimes the goal just comes down to managing this one potential mechanical problem above all other things, so we can all drive. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes it comes
Survival.
Yeah, I mean, often it comes down to don't touch fifth gear, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But so
We have a car that is the rule. There is no fifth gear, even though it looks like there is one. Even though there's a spot you can put it in.
I wasn't thinking about your car, but your car is the one that inspired the comment. I don't even know where it came from. To you remind me that, you have a truck that you can't hit fifth gear in. But yeah,
you can.
Yeah, you don't want to,
but don't.
But yeah, so often in endurance racing, where we all show up to the track, on the way down, we're all planning for what we're going to be doing as we're winning the race. But as the race unfolds, sometimes minor tragedies strike, and your goal may end up just being like, hey, our team goal is we want to get everybody out there at least, because sometimes just junk has gone so bad. You're like, okay, Sunday morning. Now the goal is we're just going to try to get some seat time for everybody, right? Like we've all been there.
Yep.
So I mean, I go to the track. My main goal, before I even go through the gates of the track, is to manage my expectations and hope that they evolve with what's happening. Because it's easy to get sucked into a world of misery at an endurance race if you walked in with your mindset on, we're going to win this thing, and if anything goes wrong, because stuff's always going to go wrong. So at least for me, I have more fun if my expectations are malleable and I'm ready to kind of roll with the punches. Because endurance racing is all punches, unless you're the guy who won, I think.
Yeah, pretty much.
But
it's just how many times you get kicked in the teeth. Right?
Right, we're there for the punches, and the punches are part of the fun. So yeah, in my mind, I guess we could talk about this for hours and hours and hours. But I mean, ultimately, if you're doing endurance racing, your goal is to try to get everybody who's participating with your team to do what their function is. If it's driving, if it's helping out, So it's sometimes it can be very fraught, but sometimes stuff just clicks off and everybody gets to drive. And so when things are going that well and everybody's getting to drive their predetermined stints, then that's when you sort of start to get to up your goals. So like, all right, let's start working on some strategy goals and how to work flags when they happen and that sort of thing. But so often it ends up just being survival goals, like you said.
So how much importance do you place on being the fastest person in the car that weekend?
Me, myself?
You yourself.
I don't care. I'm much more concerned if we all have a close. I would rather us all be very close in times and consistent. There's no value to me in being the fastest person.
You don't get the stock bonuses from that?
Those checks have not hit my mailbox yet.
All right. Well, it must be COVID that's slowing them down.
But if there are checks for that, there should be a few headed my way. But no, I don't care about that. There's a whole lot more value and pride involved for me if I'm driving with a bunch of people who we've selected each other well and we're doing well in the car and all running within a couple of seconds of each other. That means that we're doing a true representation of what the vehicle we brought to the race can do.
Right. Or maybe a little off of that.
Right.
So it'll make
we're doing a true representation of a tight grouping of similarly skilled drivers, which is my best feeling at a race. Even if we're not winning, we're all good showing means a lot to me.
So you'd rather, from a statistical standpoint, you'd want the standard deviation to be quite narrow.
Yes, tight delta.
Or if you're an archer, you want to have a very tight grouping of your targets, whether it's bullseye or not.
Exactly. Yeah, I want a tight grouping. That's the term I always use, but I didn't want to hit that jargon out there. But once you said it, that's what I'm always saying. I want a tight grouping. It's much more important than having three guys who are 10 seconds off the one guy is very fast, which has happened.
Oh yeah. I mean, if somebody who really knows how to drive comes on our team, like you,
I don't know about that.
or there's some scary fast people out there. They're going to be fast. Like when Randy took our car that one time, he's definitely faster than we are. No problem. Understood. But I always think that to me, when I look at things, I actually look at our race times for the weekend. I take out all the yellow flags and I look at the average and standard deviation. And the person I think who did the best job with handling traffic and dealing with things that just happen, because you got 100 cars out on the track, is the person who has the smallest deviation between their fastest laps and their slower laps.
I'll add in this, like, at least to me, the best lap time doesn't matter at all. It's who's making production, who's running similar laps, whether you pass 5 cars that lap or whether you pass 2 cars. Like, I think that makes a whole lot better drivers, the person who can go making very consistent laps regardless of traffic. If you're somebody who can slice through traffic without letting it affect your lap times very much, I think you're doing it right.
Yeah, exactly. So what about team alignment? Do you have to, if you're an endurance racing team, is it important that you guys and girls and everybody there agree? Because otherwise I think it leads to some friction or some. Yeah,
that's weird. I'm trying to think. I'm not sure I've ever been in a setting with a team that there wasn't this sort of alignment where we would all agree, like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We never had anybody rebel that badly where it's like, okay, this person's a terrible fit for our team. I'm sure it happens, but I've tried to
drive and drives, maybe.
Yeah, I can see that happen within a arrive and drive. Like, I mean, we've had an arrive and drive show up and, like, for sure nuke our engine and be like, I don't know what happened. When we had it all on video. Stuff happens all the time. But so, yes, I guess I should say that guy obviously wasn't in alignment with us since he wouldn't put on glasses to be able to see the gauges and then blew our car up. So,
you mean it doesn't rev to 10,000?
I guess our goal should have been our first goal should have been to make sure everybody could see the gauges. So yeah, like literally we showed up at the track with the guy who couldn't see the gauges and wouldn't do anything about it. You're just going to feel it out, and he blew our engine up. So sometimes your goals have to start at the very beginning. Like, can you see all the things inside here?
Yeah. Can you see the car in front of you? Good plan.
Oh, he just couldn't see the stuff right in front of him. He was ripping in traffic. I think he set near the fast lap for the race. It was doing great, except for blowing the engine.
So, how much? That just and you've done a lot more of this racing than me. So, how much time do you save over a weekend by having one lap that's 2 seconds faster than every other lap when you blow up the engine on Saturday? I'm just curious. Is it more?
Oh man. Well, I think if you blow the engine on that lap, then it's probably not going to be the fastest lap. It sounds counterproductive. Even if you set the fast lap and the engine blows as you cross the finish line.
Yeah.
I don't know, Bill. I don't know. It just doesn't sound like the way to win.
Perhaps not the key to endurance racing.
I don't know. I guess you could try it, but probably not.
Well, it's probably one of the few things we haven't done yet. So,
Have you guys never blown an engine?
Not yet.
Oh man, I'll tell you what. When I started go-kart racing, I got it in my head that somehow if I could chill my methanol, I would get a little more power out of it. So the one
it's
night
denser too, so you can fit more in.
Right. So one night, I've been chilling my methanol all night, and like pulling it out of the cooler, making sure nobody was looking at pouring it in. And I ventilated a block that night, like bang, big old hole in the side. I don't know if it had anything to do with chilled methanol, but I was just doing one wacky thing. I did so much wacky Mr. Wizard stuff when I used to race cars. I have no idea if it was worked or not, but I blew my engine. I'm leading the race, like, yeah, bang! Like, what was that noise? And then suddenly, no go.
Yeah. The only thing funnier than your story was when you asked if we had blown an engine, and I said no. The surprised look on your face was priceless.
Yeah. I mean, also, I have the suspicion you guys are probably not running anything hard enough to blow it up yet.
Oh wow, I feel hurt.
Let's get out there. Let's blow some stuff up.
All right, very well. Technically, every time the engine goes around, I've blown up like 6 or 7 times.
That's right. Little micro explosions.
That's right. So technically, yeah. All right. If you don't finish the race, you tend not to win. Just
Yeah. I guess there's probably some granular stuff we could talk about as far as goals for endurance racing, though. I'm just sort of trying to think. I mean, you're going to have some mechanical stuff. You have goals like, hey, make sure we watch the temperature. That might be your big goals. Make sure you watch your water temp.
Yep. Oil.
Yeah, just you may have a goal where it's like, hey, we're leading the class. Because endurance racing, the way the classes work, you might be in the class that's super competitive, and you might be in one where it's like, hey, we're up on the guy. He's like 5 laps behind us. So really all we need to do is go out. Our good lap is a 1:30. All I need every driver to do for the rest of the day is go run 140s because they're running 145s back there. That's all we got to do, right? That could be a goal, right?
Save gas, save brakes.
For sure. There are going to be times where you have to go out and save gas. So just for example, last December I raced Blake Field's 808 S10. It's got a fuel cell in it, and I think my first stint was going to be a 2-hour stint. And on a full tank of fuel, you can't go full chat with that thing. You got to kind of roll out and save some fuel, roll out of the throttle early. So I think I had a goal of, I think we had like an RPM goal. Where like if you were in traffic, you could have 6,000 RPMs trying to beat somebody out of traffic. But other than that, we want everybody to shift at 5,200 RPM, something like that. So our goal was an RPM goal to try to save fuel. But I got to start the race, and it was the shorter stint because of Jesus Hour or something in Atlanta.
Oh, yeah, I know all about that. Yeah.
So I got the Jesus Hour stint that was only going to be an hour and a half or something like that. And I was like, all right, you can go whole hog on revs and do this. So I got to run a little quicker the next day. So that was, so goals can be all over the place, but they can be essential to making your race work the way you want it to. So for example, in that race with Lemons down at Road Atlanta, we had to, run 2-hour stints on Saturday and run kind of slow, but we were still way faster than the leader in B class. So we were in good shape. But it was kind of weird running a race, not pushing hard. I don't think I'd ever had to save fuel in an endurance race until then, for real. It's interesting. And before that, I think a couple of years before that, I got to drive the Knox Vegas Lowballers Hoopty Corn. Yeah. That crazy Mustang, the first gen Mustang grafted onto a Contour SVT, I think. Anyway, driving that car and going in, the caveat and the goal was stay off the curbs. And this was at CMP, which is a place where running all across the curbs can make you a lot faster. So it was weird. I'd run CMP a million times, but I had never done it with, taking minimal or no curbs. So I had to go into this race sort of relearning the track a little bit to stay off the curb. So that was our goal in that car, was just that, stuff was fragile enough in there that we didn't want to be just clouding every curb we ran across. So sometimes goals, like we keep talking about, they may be a little esoteric or not straight across what you're used to, but they may be essential for keeping you on course and keeping the car alive all weekend.
Yeah. I mean, there's several times where you can give up a second or two or even 5 seconds a lap. And if you can avoid one pit stop, counting the time for the stop itself and the in and the out, you can save 6, 7, 8 minutes.
For sure.
That could for sure make the difference between winning and losing. Might not, but could.
And that may take you right back to one of your team's central goals. So all the stuff Bill was just talking about with numbers and lap times, I am too dumb to understand. So one of our team goals was to have smart people on the team. As it happens with Winsome Racing, there's me, the dummy, and we ended up with 3 very smart people around me. So that was one of my goals, and look at us. We're pretty good.
There you go. Okay, you know what I heard? I heard you win some.
We lose a lot.
But you lose a lot.
We have fun, though. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Funny or not funny?
I like both, actually. So
there's a lot.
I'm sure if prodded, we could come up with some really, really good stories from races. Now that the two of us are on,
okay,
that's pretty good.
So instead of the Fast and Furious storytime questions, we'll do.
Oh, but here's the problem: the Fast and Furious storytime questions with Hesser. Hesser has way better Fast and Furious answers than I do. Like my answers, like I don't want to say they're predictable, but he's got some stuff that's we will be rolling. You may have to edit the
I don't even know what that's actually. I have to read. Was I supposed to read the?
No, God, no. Nobody does. The only person who ever read this thing was John. He like marked it up and got it notarized. Damn.
That falls in prep, right? That's
prep.
Isn't that what we're talking about?
Basically, yeah.
Welcome to my world.
I have to say, John, I really, really enjoyed the skid pad.
Good.
I really got so much out of it that we ended up going on to NJMP about 10 days later. And I was really getting comfortable with that little bit of skid in the back. I think that's when I actually had the aha moment. Like things were starting to stitch together. Everything that I've learned up till now started to stitch together right after that. And
good.
I mean, the idea of balancing the car going into the turns and then trying to get the most out of my traction. And even if it was sliding a little bit, then that was okay. And getting comfortable with that. But then, of course, I broke my car, as I'm sure Bill told you, that I went off track, and I have not been in the experience driving enough like that to experience the pause.
The DT pause,
and that is going to have to be more track time to get that.
That's right. It's the only way.
Absolutely.
But I got so much. It was great. It really was. I was pushing my car like you would not believe. It was amazing.
That's awesome. We should do it again because the more, like Murph said, I agree. It's nice to get that tune-up in at the beginning of the season, to get everything wired back up, and get those synapses firing. But I think Dean would agree with you about the skid pad and because Dean pounded on that skid pad.
Probably about 45 minutes, I would think, maybe an hour, Jay.
Yeah, we left. You were doing something else.
Yeah, Vicky, my issue was the same. I was just struggling with it, making the same mistake on track. I never had a problem I pushed myself to try to drive fast, but the problem was that I was just driving fast without the ability to, if I overdrove the car or got myself in the situation, I had no idea how to save the car. And unfortunately, if we bring that up, I had an issue at Thompson where I won practice and wrecked the car, and I spent a lot of time with instructors doing the same thing, going to track days, and they were all fine, but it wasn't until I thought I knew how to handle a car and do car control until I got on the skid pad, and I couldn't do anything Murph was asking me to do, and I was getting frustrated. So afterwards I just asked, instead of going over to the autocross, if I could just stay on the skid pad, and I just kept going around and around and around each way until I could just kind of start hanging the car out and getting a feel for how, when the rear end is stepping out, how to just make that correction. And then that was my moment. And then I significantly improved after that. Not only did I get faster, I felt that when the car's, I'm having fun when the car's losing. But you're when the car's kind of rotating on you, you're like,
that's how it felt like on the track. This particular time around, there weren't a lot of people on the track. There was 20 maybe, and we were rarely, bunched up, but just kind of getting that feeling in the back end and the front end, and concentrating on going in and making sure the car was level, or manipulating the shift of the car of where you want the weight to be. And it just started making way more sense. Now I know that I was not successful on the skid pad as much as I was successful on the autocross part, but I would like to go back. And I don't know how much the turbo in it would affect that, or if I was even going fast enough to kind of kick that in or not. But I really wasn't successful on it, and I could have just been overexcited, but I know I need to go back and do it again,
Well, we should do it again in the spring, and we'll do it too. We'll treat it less as a school and more as just kind of sharpening up. But what we can do too is we should talk about renting Lime Rock with 12 of our friends.
That would be a great idea.
That's about, we can do Lime Rock from 9 a.m. until 1 o'clock. So if we do, and we just leave the track open, no rules, just go out, don't hit each other. And $500 is palatable to most people. That's some stuff.
Not only that is that I'm sorry, Bill, is that we have groups of people that heard that we were doing it and were like definitely interested in, like, oh, that would have been good. Where'd you do that at?
Let us know.
I'm sure Chris and Chrissy might be interested in something like that too.
Yeah, we probably could get the
Yeah, we
three-pedal
could
guys.
probably get quite a bit of the 3-pedal mafia team to go. Yeah.
Cool.
Anyway, thank you so
not-
much.
You're not talking
Very
into your
well.
microphone, dear.
Yeah.
Super fun.
I think she's got lens envy of you, John. So, you know.
Oh, well, I'm probably going to switch to the new mirrorless probably next year, so we could
Yeah.
talk. We
Uh-huh.
on the
There we
drop.
go. Apparently, we're getting all John's hand-me-downs soon, but we'll see. Oh, I do have to. Before we go, I got to talk to you about the cars. Anyway,
Flaccid
all right.
shift.
What's that?
Flaccid shift.
Oh no! Wow.
I was dying when you told me that. I was like, you know what? Because my friend, his nickname is Chester, and he's a drag racer. He did the exact same thing to my literally 200-mile M Roadster while I was sitting in the passenger seat. And I looked over at him and I went, seriously? And he's like, what? And I'm like, you don't need to shift him like this. And he's holding the shift knob in his hand in like one of one.
Did Dean see the picture?
It was literally one of one.
No,
Oh, Dean.
no.
You have to send over your information because the video is
Okay.
priceless.
They pulled the shifter out of the detent, so it was just flopping around the knob with the shifter. It was no longer connected to the shifter, and Bill got it.
It's like first gear, second gear, no, first shift, second shift, flaccid shift, flaccid shift.
That's right.
He's Viagra.
That's right. There's pills for that shifter. Anyway,
It's
all
awesome.
right. Well, we're going to try to start now.